Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. The longest day of both of Naruto's lives finally came to an end as night fell. Jiraiya's falsified yet very convincing speech had assured all listening that Naruto was indeed not the originally Kyuubi and his bijuification was a result of the fourth Hokage's brilliant sealing jutsu overachieving due to unlikely outside influence. He had implied Orochimaru, which was true, Naruto supposed. Depending on how one viewed the curse marks, at least. With that and Naruto's attitude being grumpy at worst, the villagers found themselves reluctantly calming down. It wasn't out of trust or total reassurance, but one could only be afraid of something for so long before growing tired of it. For now, they accepted Naruto's presence like people accepted finding out a mountain near them was an active volcano, fear of a local apocalypse buried in the back of their minds, while trying to pretend like it wasn't a problem. Naruto himself slept far more soundly than he had any right to be able to. His ears, his nose, all of his senses should and almost did keep him awake. But the long, draining toll of the day had exhausted him on an emotional and mental level, allowing him to slumber deeply. There were no dreams or nightmares, only a comforting blankness as everything faded away for several blissful hours. Waking up was an interesting experience. It was not the sun that stirred him from unconscious, but the sounds. A dull cacophony of noises built as people arose to go about their day. The longer time went on, the louder and more chaotic it became until he groaned himself awake. To his credit, he managed to keep himself from stretching his massive arms about as he took a great, deep yawn that exposed all of his teeth to the entire village while his tails flexed reflexively before relaxing down again with a plop. He pointedly ignored the momentary silence and the various people rushing to change their pants. "Did they put you on full-time fox duty, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto asked as he scratched his neck, glancing to the one-eyed Jonin sitting beneath a tree nearby. "Oh, just for now. But I call it fluffy duty," Kakashi answered with an eye smile. "I see you slept well. Small miracles, I suppose. What about you, Gaara?" Naruto asked to the sand ninja sitting cross-legged on a cloud of sand. "I rested well enough," Gaara answered calmly. "Naruto, are you alright?" Naruto stared at the seemingly monotone, stoic Ikibi Jinchuriki and almost smiled at how obvious the concern was. He had changed a lot since the Chunin exam. "Better than your bunk mate, I imagine," Naruto answered casually, ignoring how Kakashi, Gaara, and several Anbu tensed up at the mention of the other Biju. "He keeping you up at night still?" Naruto asked with a head tilt. Gaara didn't answer for a moment, feeling Shukaku stirring with interest and caution. "Yes, he does," he answered honestly. Naruto shook his head with a sigh at that. "Look, I'm sorry about his brother, or whatever they were, but he really needs to give you some peace and quiet." Kakashi frowned in worry at the conversation. "Is he threatening the Ikibi?" "He says he will. Think about it," Gaara relayed slowly, feeling very awkward. Naruto hummed absently. "I never got around to saying it earlier, Gaara, but thanks for helping with the rescue mission. That goes for your brother and sister too." "Yes, that means you, makeup boy," Naruto called out, smirking in the general direction of where the Sand siblings were in the village, seeing them jump away from the windows. First upside to being a megaton fox, it can be fun knowing where everyone is. "Do you enjoy scaring people, Naruto?" Gaara asked curiously as he tilted his head. "More like surprising them," Naruto answered, scratching his head sheepishly. "But seriously, thanks. If not for you guys, I would have lost some friends. While our recent history may cast doubt on it, our villages are allies," Gaara remarked calmly. "So it's just a coincidence that you three, of all sand ninja, showed up?" Naruto countered with an amused, knowing smile. I never said that, Gaara retorted with a hint of movement at his lips. Is that a smile? Naruto asked cheekily, enjoying the exchange despite the size difference. I have no idea what you are talking about, and you have no proof to the contrary, Gaara stated factually. Ha, well, I'm just glad you patched up things with bushy brow. By the way, how'd he do in the fight? He only recently got himself fixed up by Granny Tsunade, Naruto questioned curiously, turning to the village in annoyance. Lee, shut up. You and me are alike enough for me to know you wouldn't admit you weren't getting better even if you weren't. Gaara raised an eyebrow at the exchange but continued on without question. He performed adequately under the circumstances. His power is not as great as during our battle, but more than enough to deal with lesser foes. I'm just going to take that all as good news on his part. Though, could you have imaged Lee opening a gate or two? That bone forest probably wouldn't be there, Naruto joked with a chuckle before blinking, looking to and observing Kakashi. Sensei, did you tell Granny about the bone forest? 'Cause she's wondering what the hell we're talking about. I assumed Lee would, seeing as that was his battle. Kakashi answered in confusion himself. Hey, Granny, did you ever call the others in to report while I was asleep? Naruto called out, his long ears quirked in question. Kakashi's sweat dropped at the audible boom and far-off cursing. I'll take that as a no, the Jonin mused to himself. So, Naruto, any issues? Because if you need to take a leak or anything, we'd appreciate you moving a few miles downwind, Kakashi advised with an eye smile. Haha, very funny, sensei, Naruto retorted with an eye roll. I was completely serious, Kakashi stated flatly. Naruto stiffened with an embarrassed expression. Well, that hasn't come up yet. I'm also not technically hungry, Naruto admitted reluctantly. How can someone be technically hungry? Gaara asked with a creased brow. Look, I don't need food or anything, but I'll probably go insane without biju-sized ramen eventually, Naruto answered with a grumble. Gaara quirked his head as he stared at Naruto for a long time. Naruto, is there a reason you can't just use a transformation jutsu? A transformation jutsu? Naruto repeated without comprehension. His mouth opened again before freezing in realization, the village growing extremely quiet as the fox continued to look thoughtful before moving to get up. No. A great outcry of many ninjas, including Kakashi, all started calling out to Naruto to urge him to stop in his perceived actions. Everyone shut up, Naruto yelled over them all, rubbing his giant ears. Okay, look, I'm not that stupid. Now, I am going to go a couple miles that way, Naruto stated, jabbing a finger over his shoulder. And see if this can't be solved by a damn academy jutsu. Anbu, and everyone else keeping an eye on me. I'm a biju, I'll be within line of sight for a long ways away. So, in other words, stay as close to me as you think your hazard pay is worth, Naruto stated matter-of-factly. Kakashi sighed deeply as he watched the golden kitsune turned about carefully, rumbling the village somewhat before he began to walk away. With a blank stare, he turned to Gaara who was watching as his giant friend departed. Whatever happens next, I blame on you, kid, Kakashi stated in exasperation. Who are you again? Gaara asked as he glanced down at the leaf Jonin. Oh, no one special. Just the one who invented the Chidori, Kakashi answered with an eye smile before vanishing in a body flicker to chase after the blonde behemoth. Tsunade wiped a hand over her face as she watched various ninja leap up the Hokage monument to chase after the biju. Jiraiya, can he even use a jutsu like that? She questioned, turning her gaze to the toad sage. Why do you act like I'm some expert on tailed beasts? Jiraiya retorted, clearly frustrated for his own reasons. I mean, summons can use jutsus, and the Biju have various abilities that work like jutsu, but both are highly specialized to each creature. Meaning this could either work perfectly or, Tsunade stopped as a very distant boom echoed into her office, followed by a dull rumble. Son of a bitch. Naruto's voice could be heard, far away but still very clear. End in disaster. As always, Tsunade said with a sigh as she returned to the window, seeing a column of smoke or steam rising from miles away. Well, at least he was smart enough to do this away from the village, Jiraiya pointed out, only to blink as another explosion erupted. Damn it! Naruto yelled again, this time more frustrated than shocked. Come on, you stupid jutsu. And too stubborn to accept that it won't work, Tsunade said with a sigh. Come on. Jiraiya's look became concerned as he heard Naruto's outburst. Tsunade, I don't think that's stubbornness, he said solemnly. Meanwhile, Kakashi braced himself as Naruto went through the hand seals yet again, a blazing aura of golden chakra burning around his giant fox body. He was getting used to the feeling of it, but it was hard to shrug off such powerful waves of chakra. The glow grew brighter, blinding even. And just like the other times, the jutsu blew up in Naruto's face. Literally. Naruto growled as he was knocked on his back once more. Just let this work, damn it. Naruto spat out as he forced himself back up and did it again, singe marks on the fur of his head, torso, and hands growing with every attempted. Naruto. Give it a rest. This isn't helping anything. Kakashi called out urgently from a tree top. I know. Naruto answered even as he proceeded to try the jutsu again. This is bad, Tenzo remarked, the Anbu making his appearance on a branch below Kakashi. Should I try and what Tenzo? Naruto interrupted, turning to glare at the tiny masked man, frozen at the sight of so many teeth bared in a snarl. Try and do what? Naruto, that's enough. Kakashi reprimanded sternly. Tenzo, I know what he is, sensei. Naruto continued as he focused in on the Anbu. Or were you just too stupid to realize that when I heard Tsunade say your name, I got a pretty good idea of why you're halfway up my at all times. Naruto, I don't want to hurt you. Tenzo declared tensely, hands in a seal already. The whole world froze as Naruto slammed a mighty fist down to the side, the limb halfway embedded in the ground, sending earth and trees flying as Kakashi and Tenzo clutched to their tree while a typhoon of wind blasted by them. When they looked up, they saw Naruto's enormous face, covered partially in black from the backfired jutsus. Don't you get it? You can't hurt me, Naruto declared as he glared down at the humans. I'm all ready. Naruto, Kakashi called softly, Tenzo slowly putting his hands down as he saw the exact same thing Kakashi did. Naruto was crying. I'm already dead. Naruto finished choking back a sob as he broke his glare. I died back in that valley. I'm never going to sleep in my bed, eat with my friends, or train with my team. I'm never going to be ME again. So forgive me if I wanted to try a few more times before giving up the one good shot I had of getting that back. And just like that, Naruto turned and walked away from them in a sulk. They watched as he went. It wasn't far before he suddenly stopped and sat down, his head hunched over with his ears drooped. Was that my fault? Tenzo asked cautiously. No, Tenzo. That was inevitable, Kakashi assured with a heavy sigh. I thought it would take longer to sink in, but Naruto was bound to have a bad reaction eventually. I know I'm only supposed to act if he becomes a threat to the village, but I was honestly worried he was becoming a threat to himself, Tenzo stated in concern. Naruto's only suicidal in the doesn't quit variety, Kakashi said, more to himself than anyone else, as he watched Naruto's form with a sorrowful eye. He winced as he heard something. Something he never heard. Try as the giant fox might, Naruto couldn't suppress his sobs. Meanwhile, Naruto's soft cries couldn't be heard by most of the village, and those that did were only able because of how quiet the village had become. But all had heard the sorrowful, grieving outburst, prompting a heavy silence filled much of Konoha as words of his cries spread. Naruto's crying, Ino said with an awkward yet sympathetic look on her face as she looked out of the hospital window. What did you expect? Shikamaru asked with a sigh. Yeah, I mean, I'd be crying too if I got stuck in my clan's full expansion jutsu, Choji said, almost grumbling due to the bandages all over his body. You're just saying that because you'd starve, Ino retorted with an eye roll. Yes, Choji answered, feeling that was obvious. Even forgetting that he's a nine-tailed fox, and thus the subject of many fears caused by the previous fox. Whatever we're calling it now. He's stuck in a body that's just too big to live with humans, and everything he's ever wanted to achieve is more or less impossible, even for Naruto, Shikamaru elaborated with a deep sigh. And all because his best friend put a lightning fist through his stomach. I thought it was a lightning blade. Choji asked, tilting his head and wincing at some of his wounds. I thought it was 1,000 chirping birds. Ino added in idly. What a drag, Shikamaru muttered. Point being, he was already hyper enough. Add in emotional problems and no way to work off by training or anything like that. Shikamaru pointed out, quirking a hollow smile. How ironic. Naruto might be one of the most powerful beings in the world now, and he can't even enjoy it. How messed up is that? Extremely. Team Asuma turned in surprise to see Kiba of all people leaning on the doorway. Sorry. Came for a checkup and overheard you guys talking, he greeted with a half-hearted grin. Kiba. Glad to see you're doing well. How's Akamaru? Shikamaru asked. Pretty well. Milking my sister's affections all he can. I'm just sorry we missed the ride home, Kiba said with a chuckle, glancing over at Choji's much skinnier form. Wow. Mom always warned me about calling you Tubby, but never told me why, Kiba remarked. Yeah, well, Dad never had to explain to me why not to call you Dog Breath, Choji returned with a chuckle. Oh, like you ever had the guts to, Kiba countered with a friendly snort before sighing. So, yeah, I'll stop ignoring the fox in the room. What do we do about Naruto? 'Cause I got to tell you man, I should be happy he's crying after that fart to the face trick he pulled on me. But hearing that idiot like this is a bit too much, Kiba remarked with a wince. What can we do? He's a megaton fox, as he puts it, Shikamaru said with a raised eyebrow. What could we possibly do to cheer him up when he'd need a lake of ramen to even remotely have enough to taste? I don't know. You're the genius Chunin, I was hoping you'd know. Kiba retorted. There isn't enough food or water for him, he can't do more than talk to anybody, and he has to keep an eye on where he walks if he does more than stand up, Shikamaru remarked. Frankly, I never thought about it, but I'm not sure what the Biju even did before they were sealed. They don't need to eat, and as far as I know, we're almost never in the same area as each other. So I'm a bit at a lose for fun ideas to entertain giant masses of chakra. Kiba, does your family have a dog summoning contract or anything? Ino asked randomly. No, why? Kiba answered in confusion. Well, summon creatures can be gigantic too, so I thought Naruto could appreciate some company, Ino answered with a shrug. Why dogs though? We already know the Sannin have toads and slugs like that, Kiba reminded in confusion. Well, I'm assuming it would work better for Naruto if it was a more similar build, Ino answered simply. What are you EVO, what the hell? Kiba exclaimed as his face went red in embarrassment. Oh, that kind of company. Oh, it hurts to laugh, but I don't care. Choji stated over pained laughs. Really? Ino, really? Shikamaru asked in exasperation. What? We know that that part of him still works after yesterday with Sakura. And as perverted as it sounds, Naruto at least deserves to get laid after everything that happened, seeing as there isn't much else he can enjoy at the moment, Ino defended with her hands on her hips. Why do you put these images in my mind? Kiba exclaimed, rubbing his eyes furiously. I can see it when I close my eyes. Oh please. I know your clan isn't into bestiality, but don't pretend like you haven't seen the dogs humping each other before, Ino countered with an eye roll. Great. Now we just got to find a summoning scroll for giant foxes or something, and the whole village suffers from the largest and weirdest version of having loud, horny neighbors, Shikamaru pointed out dryly. It's not like he's on a leash, Shikamaru. He can just take it down south to a beach or something, Ino waved off. Guys, for the love of God, stop talking. Kiba instructed with a humiliated look on his face. What's up with you? Shikamaru asked with a raised eyebrow. Open the window, Kiba instructed with a groan. Ino blinked, but did as requested. She nearly jumped back as she realized now that Naruto's sobs had, at some point, turned to laughter. Is he laughing at us? Yes, he heard everything, Kiba informed in resignation. Damn, just how far can he hear from? Ino asked in amazement. How can he even make us out over everyone else in the village? Choji asked in confusion. Who knows, he's a living mass of chakra, Shikamaru said with a shrug before looking very resigned. Who is never going to let us live this down? Meanwhile, Tenzo's sweat dropped at the sight of a golden Kyuubi rolling around in laughter and slapping its fists against the ground. The laugh was nearly deafening this close, and a large patch of forest was being flattened into a future plain, with a few large crevices. Kakashi, should we be worried? Tenzo asked uncertainly. Why? The landscaping department will have it cleaned up and chakra trees replanted within a week, Kakashi pointed out casually. A relatively unknown fact about ninja villages is that they all had a landscaping department. Given how destructive ninjas could be sometimes, it was deemed important enough to have teams to fix the landscapes of their home countries, restoring the terrain when able. No, I mean about Naruto, suddenly bursting in laughter. Tenzo pointed out. Oh, that. No, I wouldn't worry. I'm sure he just heard a funny joke being told back in the village, Kakashi answered with an eye smile, inwardly relieved by Naruto's change in demeanor. Thanks, Ino. I needed that, Naruto yelled loudly, his voice echoing back into the village before returning to laughing. So, should we be concerned he knows about my wood style? Tenzo asked curiously. Not really. He's avoided actually saying you have it, so it's not like he told everyone about it, Kakashi pointed out. Though, I'm wondering how Ino got involved in anything. It's more like she wants to get me involved with something, sensei, Naruto answered with a grin as his laughter slowly faded into a few chuckles. His gigantic size made them sound far more ominous than his expression would indicate. I am almost afraid to ask, Kakashi stated with a sweat drop. So, Naruto, want to talk about anything? No, I'm out of my funk and I'm not going back into it until I have to, Naruto answered bluntly. Fair enough, I suppose, Kakashi accepted with a shrug. So, Naruto, can we get back to the village? Fluffy duty is about over for me. Naruto was not in any way surprised to find Tsunade and Jiraiya waiting on the top of the mountain when he returned. That didn't mean he was overly enthused by the sight of them. Look, if this is about my little outburst, I don't want to hear it, Naruto spat as he sat with his head hunched down towards them. I yelled, I cried, I laughed. End of story. I don't want or need a pep talk or scolding from you old farts. Are you finished yet, brat? Tsunade called up with a stern expression. Naruto rolled his eyes at that, but didn't complain further. Good. Now, before we get to anything else. Tsunade paused, pointing to her cheek. Quote. What? Do want me to lick you or something? Naruto asked, eyeing the Hokage oddly. Tsunade balled her fist with a growl while the Toad Sage laughed heartedly. As interesting as that sight would be, she meant your face. My face? Naruto repeated with a furrowed brow. What? Do I have a tree stuck in my teeth or something? I almost hate how that is a valid question from you now, Tsunade grumbled with a face palm. No, Naruto. You're covered in scorch marks from your little experiments. Naruto blinked, examining his hands and arms to see that there was indeed plenty of black patches on him at the burnt ends of his fur. Damn, I'm starting to look more like a Dalmatian than a fox, he remarked, hearing a few chuckles throughout the village at that. I was thinking cow, Jiraiya teased, grinning nervously under the glare Naruto sent him. It wasn't angry, thankfully, but it was clear the Neo-Biju was still annoyed with him. Pervy sage, I'm not pissed anymore, but seriously. How do you not notice the Kyuubi is yellow instead of red? Naruto asked flatly. Hey, I assumed it was a trick of the eye or something. Since, there has never been any other giant foxes in recent history, let alone another one with 9 tails, Jiraiya defended apologetically. Okay, I'll give you that, Naruto relented with a snort, wrinkling his nose. Great, now that you mentioned it, I'm smelling it. Burnt hair is not a pleasant scent. Believe me, I am aware of that, Tsunade remarked fondly. I suppose we'll have to get some Jonin with water jutsu to give him a wash. Ha ha ha, no, Naruto refuted with a deadpan expression. Do you have a better plan that doesn't involve walking to the ocean? Tsunade countered, unimpressed. Yeah, actually. This, I can handle, Naruto assured as he raised both hands into a seal. Many eyes went wide, as several screamed out for him to stop and others simply jumped for cover. In an instant, Naruto was covered in a blazing glow of golden chakra, like a fire plucked straight from the sun itself. It lasted for all of 3 seconds before dissipating to reveal Naruto, his fur bright and flawless once more. There, that better? Naruto asked casually. Oh, come on, what the hell? You have got to be kidding me. Naruto flinched back in surprise, his eyes owlish as he took in the outrage of the village. Most it coming from females, and all of them sounding jealous. What the hell is everyone yelling about? Naruto asked in bewilderment, looking down to an eye-twitching Jiraiya and glaring Tsunade. What did I do? You just instantly get your entire coat back to brilliant perfection with just one burst of chakra. Tsunade asked in annoyance. If you want to put it like that, I guess. Naruto answered, scratching his head in confusion. You just became the envy of just about every female in the village, Naruto, Jiraiya stated bluntly. And you? Naruto countered with a smug and knowing look. I have hair jutsu, it's a legitimate concern of the job. The Toad Sage defended fervently. And almost the entire Hyuga clan. Yeah, I said it. I heard every one of you muttering. Naruto called in the direction of the pale-eyed clan's compound. And yet, I didn't get a peep from any Inuzuka clan, even the women. Unless you count the dogs with scars in their fur. Can he understand dogs now? Jiraiya murmured to himself uncertainly. Do not hit the brat on the nose, do not hit the brat on the nose, Tsunade murmured to herself before taking a breath to calm herself. Why did you even know you can do that? Naruto shrugged. I did it before I gathered up the others for the trip back here. Granted, that was just to get dry, but I figured it could work for this too. Did we ever mention I transformed in the river, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked, looking over to the tree the copy ninja was leaning against. Kakashi shrugged casually as attention fell on him. I assumed it was implied. No offense, Naruto, but as big as you are. The only way you weren't getting wet was jumping over the river entirely. I hate that you've adapted to this so well, Tsunade stated in annoyance to the silver-haired Jonin. Oh, please. You think this is the first Naruto breakdown I've been through? Kakashi asked with a smirk under his mask. Hey, hey. That's Team 7's secret team business. I've got a reputation to worry about. Naruto protested, almost whining. Reputation? Right. Jiraiya stated flatly. Like you're one to talk, Naruto countered in kind before looking confused. What were we talking about again? Tsunade sighed heavily. Why do I get the feeling these days won't be getting infrequent? She asked herself before returning her gaze to Naruto. Okay, Naruto, you don't want to talk about it. Fine. But we obviously need to address some rules. Wonderful. Just what I want to hear. Even more stuff I can't do, Naruto grumbled. More like where you can't do them, Tsunade corrected knowingly. Or do you want the whole village to know your emotional problems 24/7? Valid, Naruto admitted begrudgingly as he his head curiously at her. And training with jutsu, or, at all, let's be frank, is a disaster waiting to happen. So, we're going to find an area down south for you to go to and stretch your limbs, she explained. Weren't you just mocking the idea of him walking down to the ocean, Lady Hokage? Kakashi asked casually. That was a joke, this is serious, Tsunade waved off. You'll have to wait a few days while we clear it with the powers that be. Naruto blinked at that. There was only one power the Hokage answered to, so that meant the daimyo. What the hell did the fire daimyo think about having an unsealed biju running around? By the heavenly bosom, he's actually thinking ahead, Jiraiya teased with a grin. Naruto gave him the flattest look possible. I'm not going to bring up the many reasons I now have to sit down and contemplate every decision I ever made in life, pervy sage. Right. Jiraiya accepted awkwardly, looking for a way to change the topic. Anyway, who is going to discuss this with the powers that be? Because I already explained this to the villagers, so now it's someone else's turn. Kakashi held up his hands in surrender. Don't look at me, I'm on call 24/7 in case I need to take over fluffy duty for anyone else. In fairness, I keep telling them to just pull up a lawn chair and read a book or something, Naruto said, scratching under his chin idly. It's not like I'm hard to keep track of anymore. What? The others haven't done that yet? Kakashi asked in mock surprise. Sensei, you don't count. You fought us while reading a book, Naruto reminded flatly. Don't pretend like you didn't think it was cool afterwards, Kakashi teased with an eye smile. Naruto's eye twitched but said absolutely nothing, knowing he wouldn't win this argument. Meanwhile, I'm sorry, but I thought I was the one that was supposed to be accused of being senile. The messenger couldn't help sweating nervously under the old Tsuchikage's annoyed look. I am merely the messenger, my lord, but they swear the information is accurate. Accurate, Onoki repeated grumpily. You expect me to believe the report that the nine-tailed fox is loose and sleeping peacefully on Konoha's precious rock sculpture is accurate. Even after it was stabbed by that snot-nosed toad brat's overgrown, unskinned wallet. As Dao, my back. Onoki groaned, having tried to stand a little too fast. Easy, Gramps, Kuretsuchi advised, helping him sit back down. Stop treating me like a cripple, Onoki grumbled, glaring at the messenger. Boy, I have seen the Kyuubi in its last days of freedom and I find it hard to imagine that beast has any pleasant feelings for the Leaf Village after all this time. Be that as it may, Lord Tsuchikage, that is what all the reports indicate, the messenger assured again before swallowing in dread. But, I'm not so certain that this is the same demon you saw, my lord. Onoki stared at him for a long instant, wondering if his hearing was finally giving out. What are you babbling about now? All records of the nine-tailed fox indicates it has a blood-red coat, correct? The Jonin asked. I'd say more orange, but what's your point? Onoki demanded. The fox, in every account, is golden in color, sir. Nine tails, with fur that shines in the sunlight, he explained, his cage falling silent at that. Biju don't change colors, do they? Kuretsuchi asked with a scowl, crossing her arms as she gave her grandfather a curious look. No, they don't. In all the old records of them, never have their forms deviated beyond battle scars, Onoki confirmed, sitting in silence as he thought deeply on the matter. Golden hair. A pacified Biju. No rampage, no destruction. His eyes narrowed as a terrible thought ran through his head, golden hair. He couldn't have, could he? Onoki muttered to himself. My lord, the messenger asked, leaning forward to hear. You're dismissed, Onoki ordered swiftly, the stone ninja leaving with a quick bow. What's on your mind, Gramps? Kuretsuchi asked in concern. The yellow flash, Onoki stated harshly. He was a master of seals. Yeah, and? Kuretsuchi asked, eyes widening as she caught on to his line of thought. You think he had something to do with this? He died, killing the Kyuubi. Every higher up in every village knows that just means it was sealed away. It would have reformed long ago if it had been mortally wounded. And that beast can't be put in a kettle like some Biju. So they sealed it into someone. A dozen and more years later, and this happens. You think he found a way to turn a Jinchuriki into a Biju? Gramps, that's insane. Kuretsuchi pointed out, almost needing to believe it. That's not the worst case scenario anymore, Kuretsuchi, Onoki remarked with a troubled scowl. Golden fur. What are? Kuretsuchi stopped as a hint of fear entered her eyes. You can't be serious. You think that beast, this new Kyuubi, is the yellow flash? No, Kuretsuchi. That is an unlikely scenario, he said with a shake of his head. No, what I suspect is perhaps as bad. What alternative could possibly be equal to that? Kuretsuchi asked skeptically. I heard rumors, years ago, that a young Minato saved a girl from being kidnapped by Kumo. A girl with red hair. The last Uzumaki in Konoha. And we all know what they needed the Uzumaki for, and the rumors were that Minato and the girl were the same age, Onoki recalled, his granddaughter stiffening at where this line of thought was going. That beast might just be the child of Minato Namikaze. Meanwhile, ahahaha. Oh, and here I thought Toby was the joker in this group. I didn't know you had it in you, Zetsu. Deidara's hologram laughed, holding his belly. The rest of the Akatsuki members were not laughing, however. The near-featureless likenesses of the group were sharing uneasy looks. Zetsu, are you positive of this? Pain asked sternly. White Zetsu didn't answer, his troubled look speaking enough, while Black Zetsu nodded. Yes. Bullshit. Deidara retorted instantly. You're telling us the Nine Tails brat is now the Nine Tails? That shit doesn't just happen. All the Biju have gone through 2 or 3 Jinchuriki each. I'm pretty something like this would have happened already. White Zetsu did speak up this time. But it's true. He's all golden, and he even talks to everyone in the village. He explained, Black Zetsu continuing as he looked towards Itachi. I imagine Orochimaru's curse seal on someone's brother had some factor in all this. Itachi didn't outwardly react, even with the knowledge that his brother was a captured traitor in Konoha now. When I agreed to join this group, nobody said anything about facing an unsealed Kyuubi, Kakuzu stated harshly. Oh, what's the matter, you chickening out, you heretical corpse-er? Hidan asked teasingly. It's not like we didn't plan for this, Kisame commented as a surprising voice of reason. Gold or crimson, we always knew this would be the tricky one. Besides, my sword's dying for a taste of that legendary chakra of the Kyuubi, Kisame stated with his normal battle hunger. Enough, Pain spoke up. Kisame is right. This changes nothing. We have 3 years to plan and observe the situation. Once we hunt down the other Biju, we can coordinate our efforts on defeating and sealing the Kyuubi. Are we sure the statue will still work? Sasori questioned curiously. Is it possible that it cannot contain this new Kyuubi's chakra? After all, Deidara does raise the point. This is unknown territory. A question we will have 3 years to find answers for, Pain countered pointedly. And in the event that it does prove incompatible with the statue, we will simply have to eliminate it from the equation. Eliminate the Kyuubi, Kakuzu repeated slowly. You make it sound simple. Are you scared, Kakuzu? Pain asked simply, daring the man to say more. Yes, the immortal answered bluntly. But if this is the route we take, my only advice is this. If that brat is now the Kyuubi, then you may want to forget about waiting 3 years. In that time, he might have mastered his powers as a Biju. At least enough to make eliminating him a very costly endeavor. And what do you propose then? We cannot seal the Kyuubi before the other Biju, Sasori reminded. Not into the statue. No, Kakuzu agreed meaningfully. What are you suggesting, exactly? Pain asked in interest. That if we find a chance to put the fox out of commission for a few years, we'd better take it, Kakuzu answered before snorting. Unless of course you have the second coming of Hashirama or Madara stashed away somewhere. Pain said nothing for a moment before nodding. This meeting is adjourned, he stated simply, the holograms vanishing in quick succession. All except one. Itachi, Pain addressed to the clan slayer. Your Sharingan, I have never attempted to subdue a Biju with my bloodline. While I'm unafraid to attempt such a thing, I believe it unwise to gamble all on the chance I'll be successful on the first attempt, Itachi answered honestly. Pain nodded. If any Uchiha could do so that easily, I doubt your clan would have left the Kyuubi free in the Warring States era. That said, you possess the Mangekyu. I doubt that doesn't stack the odds for you somewhat, the leader mused as much to himself as to the Uchiha. That is all for now, Itachi. The penultimate hologram vanished, leaving Pain alone for a moment. All of the plans, true and false, had just been thrown a curve ball unlike anything anyone could have anticipated. All in the form of one boy becoming a fox. It would take a bit of creativity and, perhaps, luck to solve this issue. But, if nothing else, they had time to figure it out. And unless Konoha sealed this new Kyuubi, it wasn't like the young Biju wouldn't be hard to find. Meanwhile, after a long, mostly one-sided conversation with Tsunade and Jiraiya, Naruto had settled down back onto his spot and simply waited. Being a Biju was proving to be fairly boring, despite all the power. Maybe it would be less so once he had some place to stretch his legs and tail some. Though, listening in on different conversations in the village was more than a little entertaining as a way to pass the time. Especially if the conversations were not about him, because most of those topics were under the category of people still being afraid of him, to some degree. He couldn't entirely blame them, he knew, but it was still annoying. And as long as he could focus on how annoying it was, he didn't have to think about how upsetting it was. He was brought out of his musing as he heard someone approach him. Someone with a very poor attempt at stealth. Naruto didn't give the Anbu any warning look this time when they stopped a would-be visitor. Children, why are you crawling in a square rock? A rat-masked Anbu asked in confusion, putting a foot on said rock, to stop them from moving. We've been caught. Scatter. A voice called out as green smoke cloud exploded from the box. Naruto blew a small breath their way, clearing the cloud away. Naruto wasn't sure who he was laughing at more. The three Anbu covered in patches of green paint or the three academy students being held by the waist under an arm of each Anbu. Well, at least it helps with the camouflage, Naruto stated idly. Please don't encourage this, Rat requested in exasperation. Boss, Konohamaru called out with a grin. I'd say great to see ya, but we kind of can't not see ya these days. Wow, you're even cooler up close, sir. Udon exclaimed in childlike awe. Hi boss. Miyogi greeted with a wide-eyed, sparkling smile. You're so big yet so cute. Naruto's eyebrow twitched at the cute comment. I'm going to ignore that, he stated flatly. What are you three doing here? We came to visit, of course. What? You think just because you're the hotshot of a fox that you're too good for your old pupil and rival? Konohamaru challenged with a smirk. The Anbu all shared a look. Yes, this was the grandson of the third Hokage, but the boy did realize his rival was now a Biju, right? More like too much of a hazard if you're not a ninja yet, Naruto answered, jabbing a finger to a point behind him. The children and Anbu glanced in the direction, seeing the destroyed forest and upturned earth from where he had moved and sat down. I kind of changed the geography a bit just by moving, Naruto remarked, suddenly looking very annoyed and glaring out at the village. Oh, screw you, Iruka-sensei. Of course I knew the word geography. Also, why aren't you dragging these brats back to class already? Oh, school's still out. The Anbu sweat dropped while the children just laughed at Naruto's antics. Yeah, we got a day off after the day you walked up to the village, Konohamaru explained. Oh, well, you're welcome then, Naruto said cheekily. You're a horrible role model, one of the Anbu stated in jest. I'm 13, sue me, Naruto countered before scratching his chin. Speaking of which, I have to talk to the old hag about my apartment. Oh, can we live there? Can we turn it into a Naruto fanclub clubhouse? Miyogi requested gleefully. Fanclub house? Whatever, you know what we mean, Udon added on. Not a chance in hell, kids, Naruto retorted dryly. Can you at least call off your Anbu paparazzi? Konohamaru asked cheekily. Besides, it's not like you're going to hurt us. Konohamaru, you'd hurt yourself just falling off while trying to climb up on me, Naruto pointed out. What? Who said anything about climbing on you, boss? Konohamaru asked, all three of them trying to look innocent. Do my giant ears mean nothing to you? Naruto asked with a smirk. Fine, but can you at least answer one question while we're here? Miyogi requested. Fire away. Naruto granted with a shrug. What was that thumping noise when your girlfriend was sitting on your nose? Udon asked with a head tilt. Naruto and the three adults stiffened at that. Yeah, you sounded really embarrassed by it, after you stopped laughing about it, Konohamaru continued. And my mom won't tell me what the big deal is about a girl sitting on a boy's face, Miyogi stated with a pout. Quote. Oh gods, I'm going to have to say it, aren't I? Naruto realized with a groan, whipping a hand over his face. I am too young to feel this old. Naruto Uzumaki. One of the Anbu spoke up. I believe I speak for the village when I respectfully request that you do not give an attempt at the birds and the bees. What are you, crazy? No, I was just going to say, you'll learn about it when you're older, Naruto said, making a face as he said the words. Gah, it makes my tongue feel old just to say that. Ah, man, no one tells us anything, Konohamaru remarked in annoyance. Can we at least get one of your hairs to show off at class? Quote. Okay, Konohamaru. Life lesson number 1. Never ask anybody that. It makes you sound like a creepy stalker, Naruto warned. And even if it didn't. Still. No. Can you take us for a ride on my birthday? Konohamaru tried hopefully. Naruto sighed as he stared at the three hopeful eyes. Figure out how to climb trees without your hands, then we'll talk. Can we send them home now? One of the Anbu requested, growing mildly irritated at the situation. Yes, head off. Have fun you brats, Naruto said as the Anbu vanished with their cargo, the children waving goodbye. He shook his head, scratching his nose as he fought off one of the many urges he had to sneeze. People were definitely talking about him today. Though their courage is admirable, it is most unyouthful to make such wagers at Naruto's expense, Lee agreed with a firm nod while in a handstand. Don't you and Guy-sensei run across him during your morning runs? Tenten pointed out with a hand on her hip. Yes, but Naruto gave us permission. So long as he is not asleep. And that we don't run on his head, Lee explained, jumping up into a proper standing position. I thought you were finishing those later, Tenten mused, glancing behind at the fall of footsteps approaching them. Speaking of late, Neji Hyuga did not yawn in public. He had an image to uphold for the clan. But his teammates knew very well when Neji hadn't slept well. He squinted a bit, he rolled his shoulders as if to pop a joint, and he was less talkative than normal. Neji grunted in affirmation. Perhaps you require better sleepwear, my rival. Lee suggested. No, I do not, Neji denied before Lee could even suggest something green and horrid. Are you sure you should be up training already? Tenten asked in concern. Neji placed a hand on his shoulder, where the wound used to be. I've recovered well so far. I'm not allowed on missions yet, but I'm clear for training in the meantime. Then what troubles you, our friend? Lee asked, concerned but over-enthusiastic as ever. Neji glanced over his shoulder at the Hokage mountain. I believe someone in the compound is speaking ill of our resident Biju. What makes you say that? Tenten asked in surprise. We haven't noticed him say anything. Every now and again, the compound is overcome with a pressure in the air and something, almost like her intent, but not as potent, Neji informed vaguely. Each time, Naruto is glaring at the compound when this happens. Oh, well, I suppose that would be a bit troubling, Tenten said while glancing at the colossal Vulpine, who was sitting up and peering out at something, or perhaps nothing at all. Has anyone tried bringing it up with anyone? Or talking to him about it? On the contrary, we've been told not to by the elders, Neji said with a frown. Why? Tenten asked incredulously. Annoying old goats. All three froze, looking towards the muttering fox. While he chose not to look in their direction, they got the sense that was meant for them. Okay, that answers that question. Probably, Tenten said slowly. The Hokage should be back from her meeting with the daimyo today. Hopefully, whatever they agree on will alleviate the issue, Neji said with a frown. Alleviate my, Naruto said with a grumble. They have ointment for that, Kakashi quipped, reclining on a tree branch nearby, reading his book. But we don't have enough in the village, or country. Haha, very funny, Naruto said sarcastically as he glanced around. Who and what is he looking for? Tenzo asked curiously, standing on a branch neighboring Kakashi. He can hear you, Kakashi reminded. I can, Naruto agreed pointedly, ears flickering. Okay. Who or what are you looking for? Tenzo called up. Tsunade. The old hag is taking her time, Naruto murmured in annoyance. Wait a minute, back up, Kakashi said, looking up from his novel. You can sense the Hokage from here, unless I got mixed up along the way. But the old hag kind of stands out, Naruto mused, eyes on the horizon. I'm betting she got drunk. That's not a bet, that's a fact, Kakashi corrected. You can sense chakra that well though. Not really. It's mostly just the big ones, Naruto answered idly, scratching at his side. He didn't want to call people bugs, but that's what them crawling on him felt like sometimes. Well, at least you have something to practice. Tenzo offered helpfully. Why are you here again? Naruto asked, looking down at the Anbu. And I mean right here, next to me. Most of the Anbu took my advice. Hell, two of them are playing checkers. Somewhere, two Anbu agents quickly burned their game before any of their superiors came to check on Naruto's claim. I'm still ordered to remain nearby, Tenzo explained simply. Just in case. I think what his fluffiness means is you'd still be close by anywhere around the Hokage monument, Kakashi informed. I have nothing better to do. Tenzo offered with a head tilt. Naruto gave him a rather pointed look. It was less annoyance and more envy. Bad phrasing, Kakashi informed casually. Tenzo paused. Perhaps it was unwise to word it like that when there was nothing better Naruto could do than sit here and try to find ways to amuse himself. It was like saying he had nothing better to do than lay in a grave to a ghost longing for life. I like hanging out with Kakashi. Tenzo tried with a shrug. Naruto accepted that with a grunt. His ears twitched as he brought himself down in a laying position. I take it someone has a visitor, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Visitors. Now shut up if you're not going to give us any privacy, Naruto requested pointedly. Privacy. The whole village can hear you, Tenzo reminded in confusion. Yes, but I can pretend they can't, Naruto retorted firmly. Kakashi and the Anbu shared a look before moving a few trees away to give Naruto some space. Naruto drummed his clawed fingers as he waited for their arrival, feeling the pull on the side of his snout. Okay. That's different from tree walking, Ino declared with a quick breath, nearly falling as she reached the more level part of Naruto's nose. You're telling me, Kiba said as he joined her. This isn't even easy to grab with my hands. You do remember he's technically made of chakra, right? Sakura reminded, climbing up with ease as she looked into the giant blue eye. Hey, Naruto, I'd ask if you had a good day, but, well, I heard. Good to see you too, Sakura, Naruto greeted. Kiba, Ino. Ino awkwardly turned to meet his gaze. Hey, Naruto. Find any summoning scrolls yet? Naruto asked cheekily. Ino blushed and cringed. You're never letting that go, are you? Not a chance in hell, Naruto answered with a deep chuckle, his tail swishing in mirth. Good breeze we got here, Tenzo remarked in jest to Kakashi, who ignored him while trying to keep his pages from flipping in the wind. You still haven't told me what he means by that, Sakura said with her arms crossed, giving Ino an accusing look. Neither has he, Ino yelled in embarrassment, pointing at Naruto. So you want the entire village to know about your idea to give Naruto some stress relief? Kiba jabbed with a grin. Ino practically swallowed her tongue, a bit of her soul dying at the sheer idea of how humiliating that would be. What does that mean? Sakura said with a narrow gaze, Naruto's muzzle rumbling under their feet with every chuckle. Nothing. You knows rubber. Ino called back with a furious blush. What did you just call me? Sakura yelled back, the two glaring at each other. Well, this was certainly worth the climb, Kiba remarked as he eyed the potential catfight. Good to see you too, Kiba, Naruto snarked, interrupting the spat between friends. You better not have tracked dog shit up here. Oh, piss off. Sakura already got on my case for that, Kiba complained. Kiba, your family has a kennel and we're standing on his nose, Sakura reminded with a sigh. His nose. You want to get flicked off out of spite? I do it too, Naruto agreed casually. I've avoided having to smell that at point blank range so far. I'll be pissed when I can't say that anymore. Kiba became fairly unnerved and resisted the urge to check his sandals for any turds. Right. So, how's Choji doing? Naruto asked curiously. What? You don't just listen in and find out? Ino asked in surprise. Naruto gave a giant shrug. I try not to hear anything from Choji or his family. Food always gets brought up and reminds me I haven't eaten anything in a week, Naruto said with a longing sigh, which stopped suddenly as he gazed past the trio. No, Choji, it's not your fault. Just something I have to get used to. Sakura's smile waned and gained a worried tint that she tried to hide. Naruto was growing accustomed to being the Kyuubi, but it was still obvious he longed for a lot of things about being human. Tasting food was a big one, as was training. So, Naruto, Ino stated awkwardly. Anything interesting to talk about? You know, that the village hasn't already heard. I mean, I know what panties you're wearing just by how much you debated it, Naruto answered bluntly. What the hell? Pervert. Ino declared in a loud and accusing voice as Sakura facepalmed and Kiba clutched his stomach from laughter. Why were you even listening in on that? Were you spying on me? You and everyone in the village know damn well I try to look at the hot springs as little as possible. So I sure as hell don't peep on people in their own homes. Granted, most of the time, all the windows facing me stay closed and covered when people are, Naruto stated before glancing out of the village. I honestly appreciate that, everyone. Several people said, you're welcome. In varying tones, but Naruto turned his eyes back to Ino. Ino huffed and crossed her arms, still embarrassed. Then why were you listening to me while I was changing? Ino demanded. You mentioned the tiger one. I thought you meant a literal tiger, Naruto answered with a smirk. I don't know what's more exasperating. Naruto telling the whole village that you're wearing tiger panties. Are you wearing them to begin with? Sakura said, giving her friend a look. Oh, shit, I just realized everyone knows, Kiba said with a snicker. Hope you weren't hoping to surprise someone with those. Shut up. Both of you. I'm burning them, Ino declared with a growl before turning to Naruto. And you. If you weren't a mountain of fur, I'd clobber you. You're just jealous I have better hair than you now, Naruto retorted with a snort. Wow, how do people stay on top of giant summons? Kiba called out as he nearly lost his footing. It works better from up here. The trio looked up instantly at the new arrival perched on Naruto's head. Lady Hokage. They all barked in greeting, standing at attention. Old hag, Naruto acknowledged wryly. You smell soberer than I expected. Suon's eyebrow twitched as she raised her foot and slammed it down on Naruto's head. Naruto winced, ears raised in discomfort. Geez, I actually felt that. Good to see you too, Naruto, Tsunade said with a tired headshake. I trust everything's been peaceful. As peaceful as it ever is, Naruto mused, humming curiously. Why'd you come up here? You were coming from the north, not the east. I heard you say something about tiger panties. I assumed Jiraiya was involved, Tsunade answered flatly. No, the pervy sage went peeping at some river, Naruto answered knowingly. A river? Tsunade asked in curiosity. Oh, right, you were already gone for that, Sakura realized. He stopped trying at hot springs after Naruto kept telling whenever he was doing his research. Did you now? Tsunade asked in amused approval. Damn, giggling really started to give me a headache with these ears, Naruto grumbled to himself. On behalf of all women in the village, I humbly thank you, Tsunade said, perhaps overplaying it a bit. Way I heard it, some of them offered to give him a free show as a reward, Kiba commented, glancing to the side with envy. Lucky bastard. They didn't, thank gods, Naruto said with a sigh. Don't torture someone with what they can't have, Kakashi remarked sagely as he joined Tsunade on Naruto's forehead. Great way to make me feel better, sensei, Naruto stated dryly. You're welcome, my fluffy student, Kakashi said with an eye smile before turning serious as he looked at Tsunade. Welcome home, Lady Tsunade. How'd the meeting going? Yeah. What did the daimyo have to say? Naruto asked curiously. Also, when did my head become a meeting place? There's plenty of spare room, Sakura teased. You're lucky I still think you're cute, Sakura, Naruto said bluntly. Sakura froze at that, flushing just a bit at the blunt compliment, but not sure how to retort. If you're all done being awkward teens, Tsunade interrupted before looking down at Naruto's golden fur. Normally, we'd have a formal announcement, but I'm sure you'll just broadcast it just fine when you hear the news. Well, I will now, Naruto said with a grin. The daimyo was surprisingly calm and relaxed about the whole thing, Tsunade admitted with a frown. And after much deliberation, he has agreed to designate a beach in the south as let's just call it a Naruto space, for now. I'm moving to a beach. Naruto asked curiously, getting the attention of literally everyone. Not exactly. You'll be allowed to travel back and forth between the village and there whenever you want, Tsunade corrected. He felt the need to make that clear. Ah, I'm staying at a beach when I'm not in the village, people. Naruto informed to Konoha at large. Tsunade sighed as she continued. The daimyo just asks that you make only one path back and forth. There are no known villages in the area, fishing or otherwise. So you being there won't have too much effect on anyone. I think I can do that. How big is it? Naruto asked curiously. Should be big enough. After all, you need plenty of space for training, Tsunade mused with a smirk. But don't say that part out loud. Naruto grunted in understanding. Just as long as Tenny isn't up mile day, every day. No, not you Tenten. Different 10. I think we can allow that, Tsunade accepted. We'll still have some ninja to keep an official eye on things. Figures. Sakura. Get promoted so you can get a shift at my beach, Naruto stated. I'll get right on that, Sakura said with a chuckle. But at least you'll be able to stretch your legs and stop being so grumpy. Sakura. There's an imprint where I'm laying on the mountain, Naruto stated flatly. Not saying much given you're a megaton fox, Kiba reminded with mirth. Your words, not mine. Remind me, who did I defeat with a fart? Naruto asked flatly. Kiba glared silently at the reminder. Well, that's wonderful to hear, really, Ino said suddenly. But should we leave? So Naruto can get ready or something. Something. Sakura asked in confusion. I was going to say, get ready and pack, then realized what I was saying, Ino answered sheepishly. Oh, yes, let me get my giant backpack and fill it with giant cups of ramen, a giant sleeping bag, and a giant set of fox-shaped pajamas, Naruto said sarcastically. Seriously, the only thing I'm taking with me are the trees stuck in my tails. What? Not the one stuck up your nine-galed grump? Ino shot back with a huff. Better keep looking real hard for that scroll I guess, Naruto said in mock idleness, causing Sakura to give more suspicious looks to Ino, who avoided eye contact as much as possible. What is he even talking about? Tsunade asked curiously. What scroll? No idea, Kakashi admitted. It's some inside joke between them. One Ino doesn't want to be repeated, for reasons I can only begin to imagine. Just teenage bullshit, like you said, hag, Naruto said before turning his gaze at his friends in full. But really, thanks for stopping by guys. And, he stopped, gaining a very annoyed expression. You okay, Naruto? Sakura asked with a head tilt. Really, we're doing this. Naruto asked with a sigh, his sight distinctly focused beyond them before diverting back to them. Ino, your mom needs you back at the floor shop. Kiba, your mom wants you back home to help with Akamaru's injuries. And that's all I'm passing along. I'm not a messenger service, damn it. Good. You'd be horrible at keeping anything confidential, Tsunade remarked, getting an annoyed growl. With that, Ino and Kiba ran off with waves of goodbye to their fox of a friend. I guess I should be going too so you can get ready, Sakura said with an apologetic smile. It's fine. Besides, now I have an excuse to take you to the beach, Naruto joked with a chuckle. Sakura slid down the side of Naruto's snout, one chakra-infused hand on the fur to keep her descent steady. As she came to the bottom, she stopped her departure. Naruto's whole body tensed a bit as Sakura buried herself into his golden fur, hands and fingers reaching to the skin below, giving him the closest thing to a hug Sakura could manage at her size. With that, she departed and left Naruto with a soft smile. Tsunade and Kakashi wisely and patiently ignored the exchange while waiting for it to end. Meanwhile, Lord Jiraiya, over here. The white-haired sage frowned grimly as joined the Anbu on a tree. To the untrained eye, they both appeared to just be looking at a branch they were both standing on. But to ninjas like them, they easily spotted the signs that someone had been on this branch, for a long time too. Fox, has the area been scoured? The fox-masked Anbu nodded. Yes. Whoever was here is long gone. Troubling, but not surprising. We've had people from every country lurking about, Jiraiya mused, leaning down to cup his chin. Not many get this close though. One thing or another spooked them. Both of them glanced to the side. Just a few dozen feet from their location was a section of the forest, destroyed and leveled by one of Naruto's tails. Neither said it, but they were sure both were thinking it. This was further out than Naruto's tails usually got. It was unlikely that Naruto had scared away a spy purely by accident. But Jiraiya wasn't sure if Naruto was being smart and not blurting this out to the village, or if he just got annoyed with someone watching him. Jiraiya reached under the branch and rubbed his fingers against something he barely spied. He pulled his hand up and found a black liquid on his digits. Ink. Fox realized in surprise. Interesting, Jiraiya said to himself. They used ink in a lot of things, namely seals. But finding wet ink, that only had a few potential explanations. It was unlikely the spy was making common supplies on the spot like storage seals and paper bombs. It could be they were attempting to make a more important seal, or they were making a message. Doing either in enemy territory was dangerous. But why else would ink be here? He glanced out as he heard and felt Naruto rising in the west, waiting to see if they had to dodge a stray tail. He relaxed when none came. Should we be concerned that Naruto's new location might already be leaked? Fox asked, glancing in the golden Kyuubi's general direction. No, we couldn't even try to keep that a secret. Not unless we kept Naruto there at all times, Jiraiya explained. Despite some wishing we would, that's not an option either. For many reasons, it went unsaid. Both of them stopped at the sudden shaking of the ground. Hey, pervy sage, are you done peeping or what? I got a beach to get to. Naruto called out. He does know that you're not, right? Fox asked with a head tilt. Oh yeah, hard as it is to believe, he's just not dumb enough to blurt out what we're actually doing, Jiraiya said cheekily. Oh, screw you. You can walk for all I care. Naruto retorted as his colossal front leg passed over his head. And he's leaving. Crap. Fox, report back to Tsunade, I'm supposed to go with them. Jiraiya said before leaping off after the Biju. Will you at least slow your down so I can climb up? By the pace of the footsteps, Fox concluded Naruto did not oblige. For a trained ninja, the trip from Konoha, near the center of the land of fire, to any of the country's borders was a trip that most made in the time of 2 days. One if they needed to reach it in a hurry. For a Biju, it was more of a stroll than anything. So Naruto was very aware he could run the entire way there in, what? An hour. A few hours, at most. There was just one problem. Besides possibly causing an earthquake with his running. No, the main problem was much simpler. I thought you said no one lived this way. Naruto growled out as he glared at the small village. No one does, it's an abandoned village, Jiraiya defended from atop Naruto's head. Abandoned? I can hear the screaming from here. Could one of you Anbu go down there and calm their down? Naruto requested. Along with Jiraiya and Kakashi, a dozen Anbu had been sent along to accompany them. Half were currently out, making sure no unlucky travelers got in Naruto's path. No offense, Uzumaki, but you do realize that you're not in charge of us, right? One of the Anbu asked politely. Kakashi sighed as he knew what was about to happen. Naruto sat down. Brat, what are you doing? Jiraiya asked in exasperation. Waiting on one of you to be an adult and tell these people they're not in danger, Naruto answered simply. No hurry, I can wait. How are you so childish and responsible? Jiraiya asked in disbelief. Because you're all being maturely irresponsible. Kakashi-sensei excluded, Naruto answered. Thank you, Kakashi said before turning to the Anbu. But he's right, one of you should go and let them know they're safe. I'll go, one of the Anbu volunteered before jumping off. Thank you, Tiger, Naruto said, rising back up and continuing his way south. Okay. Does anyone else besides the pervert know where we're going? 'Cause I'm losing faith in these directions by the minute. I told you, we're not lost. Look, you can see Mount Xylasha, right over there. Jiraiya said, pointing to a mountain off to the east. Naruto turned to look at it, and kept looking at it. You okay, Naruto? Kakashi asked curiously. Yeah, just memorizing it. I'm half expecting us to end up going in a circle. Seriously, why are we not going in a straight line? Naruto asked with a sigh. Because that would take you in distance of at least 3 major cities, Jiraiya explained with a sigh. Just bear with it, Naruto. And just think about having a massive beach all to yourself. This is the most I've moved since I got this body, Naruto said, shrugging his shoulders and popping his spine for effect. Ow, one of the Anbu said, rubbing his ear. Okay. Did not think about how loud that would be. Sounded like a tree snapping next to me. Really? Naruto asked, more to himself than to those on his back. Naruto, do not start popping your knuckles and fingers, please, Kakashi requested. I didn't say anything. Naruto defended quickly. You were thinking it, Kakashi retorted knowingly. The smallest lowering of Naruto's ears told them that was indeed the case. Soon enough, they were on the path again, heading southwards. Naruto glanced around all the while, taking in the sight and sounds. He hadn't been down south too many times. Most of his missions had been headed in any other directions, actually. And being a giant fox certainly gave him an interesting point of view. And as many people were terrified as they watched him passing, though, many more were just staring off in wonder and awe. He supposed he couldn't blame them, it wasn't every day a Kyuubi just strolled through. So, how are they taking it? Naruto asked curiously. Who are they and what is it? Jiraiya asked without missing a beat. It is me. They would the other villages, Naruto explained. A short silence came over the group, Kakashi and Jiraiya sharing a neutral look while the Anbu refused to speak. I'm not the sharpest kunai in the pouch, Naruto admitted. But you don't need to be a genius to know that me being this would get a lot of attention. I'm surprised you didn't already know, with these great ears of yours, Kakashi mused, glancing to the one he was nearest. It gets hard, sorting through what everyone says. Some of you are speculating, some of you are delivering news, Naruto said. And I doubt it's something you need to keep quiet about. So, spill. Suna is happy you weren't like this during the Chunin exams, Jiraiya answered. No idea about Kiri. They're still a mess. Iwa and Kumo. They're more than a little spooked. I can only imagine, Naruto said under his breath. You happy about that? The sage asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto sighed. I'm not happy or unhappy about it. I'll be happy or unhappy when I find out what they decide what to do about it. You really are thinking ahead, Kakashi observed to himself. Kind of have to. All my plans and dreams kind of went up in smoke, Naruto reminded bitterly. Naruto. Jiraiya said in sympathy. Shut it. I'm not going to cry about it again or anything, Naruto said firmly. Just need to figure some things out for myself. In relative silence later, the beach was in sight. There we are, the Kabaran, the wall of the flood. Jiraiya said, pointing to a line of massive stone pillars along the beach. The what now? Naruto asked curiously. There's an old myth the gods made a massive dam to hold back the sea when it tried to flood the world, Kakashi explained. Neat, Naruto said as they got closer, the pillars becoming larger and larger. Eventually, he was a bit dumbfounded as he realized the stone formations were actually insanely massive. Wow, I almost forgot what it was like looking up at something, he exclaimed, staring up at the pillars. They were wider than his body and at least 3 times as tall. And you doubted my sense of directions, Jiraiya said smugly. Why have I never heard of this place? Seems like a great tourist spot, Naruto mused. You'd think, but it's pretty hard to get to for the average person. All the ports for trading and fishing are elsewhere, so no one's bothered to invest into the area, Kakashi explained. Naruto just stared for a bit longer as they passed by one of the pillars, making their way onto the beach proper. It was a massive stretch. Not counting his tails, his whole body could reasonably lay on most of it if he wanted to just bath in the sunlight. The water stretched on for miles into the horizons, with only a few small rock formations out in the sea. The sun shined against the surface, giving Naruto a beautiful first look at his new place. I think I'm going to like it here, Naruto mused absently. Good to hear, Jiraiya said as the Anbu started to jump off of the Biju's back. While you get settled in, we're going to set up a parameter. Wait, am I getting sealed in here? Naruto asked pointedly. No, you'd probably rip through it on accident, Jiraiya said factually. It's just a genjutsu barrier, something that'll keep most people from wandering in here. Ah, fair enough, Naruto said as the sage jumped away. Now, let's see how this turns out. How whaaaaaaaat? Kakashi asked, only for Naruto to leap forth into the ocean. Shit. Everyone. Off the beach. Jiraiya called out. A miniature tsunami suddenly crashed onto the beach and into the trees. The water turned and bulged from the sudden dive bomb, leaving Kakashi standing on top of the water, his hair flopping down from the wetness. I should have known he'd do that, Kakashi scolded himself in resignment. Kakashi. Everything okay out there? Jiraiya yelled from the beach. Yeah. Just a bit waterlogged. Kakashi answered with an eye smile. I mean Naruto. Jiraiya reiterated. Does he even know how to swim anymore? Good question. Kakashi said, pointing off to the side. You should ask him. Huh. Jiraiya looked over and saw that, down the beach was indeed a giant fox pulling himself out of the water. Naruto spat out enough water to fill a lake before making a hand sign, his body engulfed in golden chakra. It settled, revealing his fur once more dry and shining in the sun. Well, I can't swim yet, but I don't need to breathe underwater, Naruto mused as he pulled some coral out of his hand's fur, tossing it into the sea. Naruto, what the hell were you thinking? Jiraiya asked as she stood in front of the Kyuubi. In response, Naruto turned his head and allowed a bit of water to pour of his ear, almost soaking Jiraiya. Hey, watch it, the toad sage snapped. I was watching. I missed, Naruto said with a smirk. As for what I was thinking, I wanted to know what being a wet fox felt like. Answer. Not too different from being a wet human. I'm glad that important question was answered, Jiraiya said with an eye roll. That and I wanted to go fishing, Naruto added on. Fishing? Jiraiya repeated. Well, more like whaling I guess, Naruto said, scratching his forehead. I just want to taste something at this point. Okay, I can understand that, Jiraiya accepted. So, think you'll like it here? Beach, possibly food, lots of space to myself, and I don't have to worry about hurting anyone when I try training with this body. Naruto listed off with a small smile. It's perfect. Meanwhile, good riddance. Sakura couldn't help glaring whenever she heard someone muttering about being glad that Naruto was gone. Yes, some of them were legitimately not malicious. Like the ones who couldn't sleep well at night, or at all during the day with Naruto's voice. Others were just glad not to hear every instant of Naruto's life being heard across the village. But then there were the ones that had just hated the sight of him and thought he was still a monster. Let it go, Sakura, Shikamaru said with a sigh. Not worth getting worked up over. We're not kids in an academy anymore, Shikamaru, Sakura said with a frown. We don't have the luxury of being stupid and not notice everything wrong with how people treated Naruto. You're so troublesome. Clobbering everyone that bad mouths him isn't going to do you or Naruto any favors, Shikamaru countered. Makes me feel better sometimes, Sakura said under her breath. You've been really protective of him since he got furry, Choji said curiously. Sakura noted to herself that she was still not used to seeing Choji so thin, even if he was steadily getting his weight back. You both do remember that breakdown he had, right? Sakura asked with a frown. Yeah, don't remind me, Shikamaru said with a sigh. That was just sad. If Naruto needs to be snarky to cope, I'm all for it. I hate seeing the guy sad like that, Choji said with a frown. But do you remember what he said? Sakura pressed. He said he died, you too. Sasuke'd him, and he came back like this. If not for a freak accident, he'd be gone. They both turned very grim at that. They were ninja. They knew dying on the mission was always a possibility. But they had avoided experiencing that loss just yet. And to imagine Naruto of all people being the first to go of their generation, it was just disheartening. So, you nearly lost him, got him back on a miracle, and realized you needed to be a better friend to him. Shikamaru summarized. What? Should I have been a bitch and tried to clobber him for not doing a better job of bringing Sasuke back? Sakura asked sarcastically. Oh please, you were never that bad, Choji said with a chuckle. Look, Naruto's my friend and he's in a weird place right now that I can't even begin to comprehend, Sakura said with a sigh. I'm just trying to help and now I'm realizing how shitty some of the people in this village are. I think you need a hobby, Choji said suddenly. What? Sakura asked blankly. Well, Naruto's got his own place now, Choji mused. So you could probably use something to do instead of just worrying about him all the time. Choji's right. Flattered as Naruto would be, he definitely wouldn't want you worrying about him all the time. He's a big fox. He can take care of himself. Most of the time, Shikamaru agreed. Sakura sighed. I know. I've just been waiting for Naruto's situation to get resolved, I guess. I know I need to start taking my training more seriously, Sakura said, cupping her chin. Just need to figure out who can training me. What about Kakashi? He's still your sensei, right? Shikamaru reminded. Yes, but he's unofficially on fluffy duty when needed. You know, since he's about the only adult that seems to understand Naruto. Well, him and Iruka, but he has his own little monsters to watch after, Sakura said in jest. I was thinking about asking Lady Tsunade, but, Choji prompted. Well, with the entire Naruto situation, she might be a bit too busy to take on an apprentice, Sakura mused with an awkward smile. You're not wrong. I can only imagine the headache this has been for the higher-ups, let alone the paperwork, Shikamaru agreed, leaving it unstated how much concern this might cause for other nations. But in the meantime, I still should get back to training, Sakura said, looking to the empty spot above the Hokage monument. I do wonder what he's up to right now though. Maybe he went fishing, Choji suggested. For what? A whale? Shikamaru asked, smirking with a laugh. Meanwhile, you caught a whale. It was mostly just an observation from Kakashi, looking at the huge carcass Naruto had literally dropped onto the beach. Look, I haven't tasted anything in a week. At this point, I'm willing to give this a try, Naruto said as he placed a hand on his, before giving Kakashi a cautious look. Unless you want to explain whale blood on your uniform, you might want to stand back. Kakashi decided to take that advice, body flickering a small distance away as Naruto sunk his fangs into the aquatic beast, blood spattering out as he ripped out a mouthful. You know, Naruto started as he carefully chewed the meal. It's not great, but it's not as bad as you'd think. I'll take your word for it, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Wish I knew some fire jutsu. Cooking it might make the taste better, Naruto mused. Hey, Kakashi, do you? Well, I could, but I'd probably either use up half my chakra or overcook it. Fire jutsu weren't intended for cooking, after all, Kakashi answered good-naturedly. True, Naruto accepted, taking another bite out of the whale. You know you can't eat these too often, right? They'd go extinct if you started treating them like ramen, Kakashi cautioned. Relax, I'm just going to go for one every week or two. Not like I need to eat as a mass of chakra, Naruto waved off as he used his claws to put a piece of a whale bone from his teeth. Glad you're having a good time, Jiraiya said, feigning a sound of exhaustion. Well, my work here is done. Thank you for setting up my keep out fence, Naruto said with a chuckle. You're very welcome. It's a damn big fence, Jiraiya said, undaunted by the sarcasm. It goes just beyond the Kabaran. We set up markers on the beach to show how far this all stretches. You sure I'll notice them? Naruto asked, legitimately unsure. We had some Anbu that specialized in earth jutsu. It'll be the obvious stretch of flat stone interrupting the beach. Can't miss it, Jiraiya assured confidently. How about out there? Naruto asked, looking out to the sea. It'll keep people from coming here as a tourist spot, but you might get some people landing here if they're desperate or something, Jiraiya explained. Or if they just wash up, I assume, Kakashi added in. That too, yes, Jiraiya answered. On that note, try to be careful at sea. Trust me, learning to water walk again is second on my to-do list. Right after I learn how to swim again, Naruto said, turning around to glare at his nine tails. Going to be really awkward with these things. Maybe you can use them as a propeller, Kakashi suggested casually. Quote. Naruto stared for a long moment before face-palming. Why do you put these images in my head? I'm going to be chuckling about that for weeks. Glad to be of service, Kakashi joked. So, wasn't exactly clear on this part. How many people are going to be here? Naruto asked curiously. One or two. Usually Chunin or Jonin, Jiraiya explained. I know you probably don't like being watched, but like I haven't been stared at for the last week. Naruto interrupted with a snort. It's fine, I get it. Tsunade needs to be able to say the village knows where I am. Is that maturity or resignation? Jiraiya asked, cupping his chin. There's a difference. Naruto asked rhetorically. He's not wrong, Kakashi said with a sigh. Well, you'll be happy to know we have first shift. We, Naruto repeated. Jiraiya shrugged. I need to make sure the genjutsu seals work fine while being around you. Kakashi is here because he seems to be the only one you respect. No, I respect you. And the old hag. I just like Kakashi-sensei more. Him and Iruka-sensei, Naruto explained honestly. Then why do we get the shitty nicknames? Jiraiya asked with a grumble. Yours is just because you are a pervy sage, Naruto answered flatly. Tsunade's. Old drunk feels like too much of a low blow for me. And old bitch is a bit too far. Gambling addict just isn't good enough. Huh, you actually put a lot of thought into those nicknames, Naruto, Kakashi said in surprise. What would you call me then? Scarecrow. Sounds a bit cool, sounds a bit insulting. Fits you perfectly, Naruto answered instantly. You know my shit childhood. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I had a lot of pent-up aggression. So I'd stare out my window and think up nicknames for everyone I met. Okay, point, Jiraiya said, not willing to pull that bandage. Anyway, I already sent the Anbu back to the village. Okay, well, you two can do whatever you want, while I am going to try to learn to water walk again, Naruto said as he walked towards the ocean. I thought you were going to learn to swim first. Kakashi called out after the biju. It's not like I'll drown. I'll practice swimming when I fall through, Naruto said as he placed his furry hand over the water, channeling chakra into it. Kakashi and Jiraiya were not at all surprised that Naruto accidentally caused a shockwave, sending the water blasting away, forming a perfect circle where the water could not enter, leaving only the sand and sea stones at the bottom. This might be even harder than I thought, Naruto said with a sweat drop. Well, I'm going to go find a place to rest under the shade, a safe distance from here, Jiraiya said, glancing to Kakashi. I'll go find a good spot to read, somewhere I can keep my book out of the splash zone, Kakashi answered. That was the only word for it, really. His week atop the Hokage mountain had involved him falling asleep with the entire nighttime cacophony of the village in his ears. Drunks at bars, dogs barking, couples arguing, babies crying, people screaming from nightmares. Every sound in the village, and he had learned to tune it out. Compare that to these shores. The gentle crashing of the waves, the wind blowing through branches. Some might even call it peaceful. But staring up at the moon, Naruto remembered how much the quiet bothered him sometimes, ever since he could remember. His home had always been quiet. It reminded him he was alone as a child. And he was alone in another way now. What was he going to do? Hokage was off the table. He literally wasn't human now. Protecting the village was obvious, for reasons both personal and practical. But before, he had a life beyond being a ninja. Friends, places he liked to go, and things he liked to do. How does one have a life as a biju? A very loud and sudden pop made him look over in surprise to see a large cloud of smoke. He scowled and grew fairly confused as the smell of toad invaded his nose. Nice night, Naru boy. You look like you can't sleep, and he thought you could use some company of a similar size, Gamabunta informed, taking a long inhale of his pipe. You're not exactly the type to pop in for a friendly visit, Naruto remarked skeptically. Gamabunta sighed. Well, I've been wondering how you were doing, being this new Kyuubi and all. And I did stab you, so a visit is the least I owe you. Naruto growled thoughtfully before looking back out to the sea. I guess I can't hold it against you too much. I probably made you piss yourself. You sure did, Naruto. Naruto did a double take, seeing a much smaller toad on Gamabunta's head. Gamakichi. Wow. Dad wasn't kidding. What did that village of yours feed you? Gamakichi said with a laugh. You should have seen it. Dad actually wet himself. It was hilarious. I thought he saw the Shinigami. You little. Gamabunta glowered at his son. I told you not to say anything about that. But yeah, the old guy summoned me and had me ask Dad if we wouldn't mind paying you a visit, Gamakichi explained. What's the matter? Too important to summon us yourself now that you're some big shot with 9 tails. That just makes you 9 times a baby to us toads. Quote. If you were any bigger, I'd flick you into the ocean, Naruto said, his small smile revealing his true feelings. Anime and manga. After that, I'd let him too, Gamabunta remarked with a snort. So, Naruto, I hear this is your new home. More like secondary home, Naruto mused, glancing back at the whale carcass. I'd have cleaned up, but I wasn't expecting visitors. Biju need to eat? Gamabunta asked in legitimate surprise. No, but we still taste stuff, Naruto answered. Perfect. That means I didn't waste my time bringing this along, Gamabunta said as he pulled something out from behind his back, that something being a sake bottle, a very gigantic sake bottle, fit for someone of Gamabunta's size, or Naruto's. Consider it a housewarming present, sans the house, Gamabunta said with a chuckle as he popped it open. Quote. Last time, I told you I was underage, Naruto reminded. But since then, I've died and become a giant chakra fox. So, sure. That's the spirits. Gamabunta jabbed as he produced 2 enlarged sake cups. Besides, we never really did seal the whole henchman thing with a proper drink. Naruto snorted. Oh, so that's why you're here. You just wanted to be able to say the Kyuubi is your henchman, he countered as he picked up the cup awkwardly. It was strange. The hands were like a human's, so it was very familiar, to grab a cup like this. But it still felt off, especially while sitting on his haunches like this and how long his snout was. Well, come on, let's see if all that chakra helps you hold your sake. Gamabunta egged on. Naruto shrugged and, in sync, they both started to drink from the cups. Anime and manga. Go, 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 go. Gamakichi cheered on, pumping his amphibious hands in the air. Ah, that's the good stuff. Right, Naru boy, Gamabunta said with a laugh. In response, Naruto reached over, grabbed the entire bottle, and proceeded to start chugging it without saying a word. Meanwhile, the 2 humans were watching this unfold with increasing uneasiness. Quote. Did you just turn my student into an alcoholic? Kakashi asked, too dumbfounded to be upset. I didn't know he'd bring booze. Jiraiya defended. I didn't think Bunta was crazy enough to try and get a Biju drunk. Apparently he is, Kakashi said, sweat dropping at the scene. And Naruto is still going. You got a taste for it, Gamabunta asked in surprise. The bottle now empty, Naruto put it down and wiped his mouth with the same arm. Not really. Just wanted to see if I could get buzzed, Naruto said in disappointment. Almost did. Then it was gone. I think my chakra burns through it too fast. Oh, I suppose that answers that question, Gamabunta mused. Perhaps something stronger will outpace it. Still, glad we could have this drink. Yeah, it's funny seeing Dad work up a sweat, Gamakichi said with a chuckle. Kichi, you are grounded when we get home, Gamabunta said with a groan. Worth it, Pops, Gamakichi said smugly. Naruto chuckled. Thanks, both of you. This really means a lot. I can't say I know what you're going through, brat, Gamabunta answered bluntly. But I can tell it's a lot. You don't act like the same hyperactive ball of determined stupidity. I can probably throw you in the ocean with my tails, Naruto reminded me, mostly joking, mostly. My point is that you're not alone, Naruto. And who knows what you'll make of yourself, Gamabunta said encouragingly. After all, you might not become the fire shadow, but you'll cast a very large shadow all the same. Quote. Naruto silently looked back up at the moon. Another time, think you might be able to help me with training. Training, Gamabunta mused, humming on his pipe. Can't hurt, having someone with a similar point of view helping out, Naruto said with a shrug. Point of view? Gamakichi asked with a head tilt before looking between the kitsune and his father. Oh, I see what you did there. Don't do it too often. I have to try to preserve whatever is left of my reputation. Being at your beck and call wouldn't help, Gamabunta stated. Well, about time for us to head home, Naru boy. I hope you sleep well. Farewell. See ya. Gamakichi called out with a wave. Until next time, Naruto answered with a smile as they vanished in a puff of smoke. All at once, Naruto practically flopped onto the beach, moving about to get into a comfortable position to rest. Well, I guess that actually worked, Jiraiya mused. It did, Kakashi agreed, watching his student start to slumber peacefully. So, think he'll regret sleeping in the sand? Please, a flash of chakra and his fur is spotless, Jiraiya retorted with a scoff, tilting his head. Huh, the sake bottle didn't go with Gamabunta. You're right, Kakashi realized, glancing at him curiously as he didn't have much experience himself with giant summons. Is that normal? It's not abnormal, really. Personal stuff like Bunta's blade and vest always go with him. But the stuff they don't mind leaving behind sometimes doesn't, Jiraiya answered. Can't help wondering what Naruto might do with that. Assuming he doesn't break it on accident, Kakashi pointed out, pausing before making an amendment. Or on purpose for that matter. The rest of the night went relatively peacefully, the sun soon rising for another day. Said day formally started once Naruto awoke and, as predicted, dislodged the sand from his fur with a flare of his golden chakra. Good morning, sleeping beauty, Kakashi greeted as he strolled onto the beach, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his novel. I swear you sleep read sometimes, Naruto muttered, letting out a loud and near thunderous yawn. Ah, wow, it feels good not worrying about everyone freaking out when I do that. Trust me, every Anbu that's been undercover for a long time can relate, Kakashi said knowingly. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Do I want to know what the longest time you hid in a small place was? 2 months. Missed my birthday. I almost started humming the birthday song out loud, Kakashi remarked with a sigh. Good times. Amateur, Jiraiya said boastfully as he joined them. My record is 6 months. Did you have research material? Naruto asked bluntly. Quote. Maybe, Jiraiya answered evasively. Doesn't count, Naruto remarked flatly. Oh, that's bull and you know it, brat, Jiraiya said before turning more serious. Well, good news, the seals held up fine. Even with that burst of chakra. No idea if they'll last if you got into more intense training, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Great. So, what now? Naruto asked, glancing between them questioningly. Now, Kakashi and I head back to the village, Jiraiya answered bluntly. Ah, Naruto said in understanding. Well, I'll try not to destroy the place before the next shift shows up. Say hi to everyone for me. Quote. That's it, Kakashi asked carefully. Thanks for asking, sensei, Naruto said with an honest smile. But I'm not going to start bawling my furry eyes out just because I have to be alone for a day or two. Besides, I'll be heading back with the next shift or the one after that. I'm going to sleep on that mountain at least once a week still. Fair enough, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Remember, try not to break the seals, or you'll have all kinds of tourists, Jiraiya warned. Anime and manga, something Naruto decidedly didn't want. Fame was a nice idea, but he knew he'd have people climbing on him all the time eventually, on dares or just to say they did it. With a wave from the Jonin and the Sannin, they made their leave. Think he'll be fine on his own? Jiraiya asked idly. Cannonball. Instantly, the two jumped into the branches of the trees, heading for the tops. Then they paused, looking around in confusion as they realized there was no rush of water or great flash. Ha! Gotcha! Naruto called out with a grin on his furred face, snickering to himself. Jiraiya gained a tick mark while Kakashi just had an eye smile. I think he'll be just fine. As the two left, Naruto finished his laughter. Well, at least I can still prank people out of boredom, Naruto mused as he watched them leave, or rather heard them. There was a point where their voices and scents became, not fainter, but muted. Like something was blocking it, the barrier no doubt, which meant they were outside it now. He allowed his grin to fall into a frown, glancing off to the side, nostrils flared as he stared into the forest. A lovely pen they've arranged for you, Naruto. Naruto growled low in his throat. I thought that was your smell, Orochimaru. Took you long enough. Anime and manga. The snake Sannin chuckled eerily, choosing to remain unseen. Anyone else wouldn't hear the voice from this distance, but Orochimaru might as well be face to face with Naruto for how well the human-turned-Biju could hear him. Oh, so you did sense me on your trip here. Hard not to. You smell rotten as ever, Naruto stated bluntly, snorting in disgust. I'm almost surprised. I thought you were going to reveal me to everyone. Or at least to my old teammate and your dear sensei, Orochimaru continued. I'm not a genius, but I'm pretty sure that you'd find this place eventually even if we scared you off, Naruto answered. So tell me, why are you here and when can you leave? Oh, I didn't expect you to be so willing to listen. Orochimaru asked with an amused hum. I've gained a lot of training in tolerating horrible voices this past week. I'm sure I can stomach yours, Naruto retorted flatly. Perhaps there is a brain in that head of yours, Orochimaru joked. Go hump a rock, Naruto barked back. Whatever you're selling, keep in mind I blame a big part of this on you. This, child? Orochimaru asked coyly. By this, do you mean your ascension? Naruto was sure that the snake Sannin could actually feel his glare at this point. You have power beyond the wildest dreams of most men, even the cages themselves. You are free of the many things that plague humans. Hunger, frailty, and let us not forget, mortality, Orochimaru said with an audible grin. I see where this is going now, Naruto said knowingly. You want to become something like a Biju. I suppose that's why you're not still pinning for Sasuke's body. My goal is to learn all there is to know about jutsu and chakra. The Sharingan is a useful tool to that end, there can be no denial. But immortality, true immortality, well now, that would eliminate the greatest obstacle, time itself, Orochimaru stated. Assuming you can even do jutsu anymore if you were like me, Naruto said holding up his front limbs. I still have hands and I still can't do it. A minor setback, I'm sure, for both of us. If nothing else, we're both rather stubborn, Orochimaru said mockingly. I can't argue with that, since you found a way around dying, even if it involves body hopping, Naruto mused before blinking. I suppose that's two things we have in common. Orochimaru made a noise of interest and confusion at that. We both don't have our first bodies anymore, Naruto explained. Ever miss it? Quote. Yes, Orochimaru answered knowingly. No skin is quite like your first. Naruto grunted. So, let me take a guess. You want me to let you get some of my furs or something to study, and as a trade, you'll help me find a way to take human form. Naruto listed off neutrally. Pass. Such a shame, Orochimaru mused. Is this the part where we have an epic clash, oh great Kyuubi? No. Naruto answered flatly. No, it's not. Not going to try to fight me. Is the mighty fox wary of the trespassing snake? Orochimaru taunted. More like I don't care to play with a snake's shed skin, Naruto said with a snort. Silence was his answer. I know you're not stupid. You wouldn't come all the way down here in person. You're either a clone or have some weird jutsu to possess somebody. I could be wrong, but by the smell, I'd guess you're using a corpse as some nasty puppet. Clever, Naruto, clever, Orochimaru praised, clapping softly in praise. What I don't understand is what the pervy sage is waiting for, Naruto commented. Summoning. Toad mouth bind. Orochimaru glared as he suddenly found himself surrounded by a flesh corridor. Well played, I suppose. Thanks, that means so much from an old friend like you, Jiraiya remarked with a dry smirk, on the same tree as Orochimaru, on the opposite side. Anime and manga. I was referring to Naruto, Orochimaru countered. Oh well, I suppose there is no use in continuing this. Perhaps we'll come to an arrangement another time, Naruto. Arrange your. Naruto snarled. Don't bother, Jiraiya said as he dispelled the summoned toad's stomach. He came around the tree, finding there was indeed a corpse lying against the tree trunk, lifeless eyes staring up. He's already gone. Also, arrange your. Yeah, I realized how bad it sounded when I said it, Naruto grumbled. You knew he was following us. I knew someone was, even since you stared at that mountain on the way here, Jiraiya remarked with a frown. Why didn't you say anything before? You mean not wanting to blow whatever plan you had cooked up? Naruto asked with a shrug. I wanted to hear what he had to say. Naruto. Relax, I'm not interested. I don't want an Orochi Biju any more than you do, Naruto assured casually. But I wanted to know what he was after. Seemed like something useful to know, what he wants from me. I almost thought, becoming a Biju, was too obvious an answer for him. Don't get me wrong, Naruto, I don't think you'd betray us or anything, Jiraiya assured. Just that I'd be stupid and desperate enough to do it by accident, Naruto finished without accusation. Well, to be fair, you were tricked into stealing the forbidden scroll once, Jiraiya reminded delicately. Oh, yes, an orphan boy was tricked by the one sensei that acted remotely understanding to him, Naruto retorted with an eye roll. Be more alarmed that an academy student could have run off with it if I hadn't stopped to learn from it. Can't argue with that, Jiraiya agreed. Well, the barrier is secure with him gone, if only for now. Yeah, why did you let him find this place? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. I thought we were going to fight him on the way here. Orochimaru is smart enough to figure it out after a while. I wanted to confront him here and now and not leave it to some unlucky Chunin Tsunade assigns to come down here, Jiraiya explained with a frown. You need to be careful, Naruto. It's entirely possible that someone might come here and try to seal you away. It'd probably fail, given you're the Kyuubi now, but still. Naruto frowned. Not a thought he wanted to dwell on more than he had to. He had heard more than a few conversations about sealing him around the village. He imagined a few more were happening now that he was out of earshot of the village. Don't look so glum, Jiraiya said with a sigh. Sealing any Biju isn't easy. You need a strong seal, a vessel that can survive holding one, and you actually have to subdue a biju. You do? Naruto asked with interest. Jiraiya nodded sagely. Unless it's somehow restrained or overpowered, sealing a fully formed biju is almost impossible. Any sealing that can be done that quickly is too fragile. Any that take that long, well, if the biju doesn't you before it's done, it certainly won't stand still enough for the impact. That isn't even getting into how powerful the chakra can be and overwhelm the seal or the vessel before it takes hold. Well, good to know someone can't just come right up to me and surprise seal me, Naruto remarked in some relief. Jiraiya nodded. He didn't bother mentioning that the only thing that could normally survive having the Kyuubi sealed into them long-term was someone from the Uzumaki clan. Something they were in short supply as of now. The irony of Naruto's lack of family being a good thing for his continued freedom wasn't lost on Jiraiya. Well, I'll be heading out for real this time. I told Kakashi to hang back in case something went wrong, Jiraiya informed, waving as he departed. Good. I can finally get the snake smell out of my nose. The damn whale leftovers smelled better, Naruto said, snorting hard as he rubbed his nose. Meanwhile, I see you. Those 3 words haunted her mind with every waking moment. I see you. Those words, and that great blue eye, peering into her soul from across time and space. I see you. She knew that if she ever so much as tried to sense out that massive chakra once more, he would see her again. I see you. She could no longer tell if that notion filled her with dread or numbness. I see you, Karin. She stiffened before trying to hide it. Yes, Gensui-sama. I'm sorry. Did you say something? I asked how you're doing, Shiroyasha repeated patiently, eyeing the dark rings around Karin's eyes. I already filled for a return to work, Gensui-sama, Karin answered evenly. Yes, but I asked how you're doing, Shiroyasha reiterated, getting only silence. Karin, you were unconscious for 2 days and in the hospital for another. Physically you're fine, but you've refused to answer any questions about what happened. Karin balled her fist, not in anger, but to steady herself. If you're worried I can't do my job as a censor. I'm worried about you, Karin, Shiroyasha stated forcefully. You don't have to explain what happened. But can you give us some idea of what you're going through? Quote. Karin looked down. I think he can still sense me. The Kyuubi, the leader of Grass asked with a raised eyebrow. Anime and manga. The new one, yes, Karin answered, refusing to look up still. Every now and then I can feel some spike in his chakra, whenever he's focused on my direction. Quote. Karin, do you think the Kyuubi marked you in some way? Shiroyasha asked carefully. I don't know what he did. Or what I did, Karin answered with a shiver. Just that I am acutely aware of him, more than I was before. Like I'm going to turn around, and he'll be watching me from just over the trees. Shiroyasha looked troubled at that. There was no telling what all of that could mean. Gensui-sama, I'm fine, honestly, Karin assured with a weak smile. I just need to get a good night's sleep for a change. Shiroyasha nodded slowly. Is there anything else? Yes, Karin answered with a frown. I'm not sure if you knew already, but he went south. South? Shiroyasha asked with a raised eyebrow. I don't know why, but I could feel him move further and further away yesterday. Shiroyasha cupped her chin. They're probably keeping the Kyuubi somewhere out of the way so that he's not lurking over the village all the time. I'm sure that even if the village got used to that, it wouldn't be good for customers. That was objectively true, Karin knew. Why haven't they tried to seal him though? The official with a Sokutai hat frowned dramatically. Rakage, need I remind you that the daimyo? This is not the first time a Jinchuriki has died, said without hesitation or wavering. This is the only time one has become a biju. Are you aware of what normally happens? Is the daimyo? The courtier remained silent, knowing the answer. Best case scenario, the biju is gone for couple years before reforming. Worst case, it is released right then and there, leading to devastation and death, A answered calmly. We are well aware of the last time the Hachibi broke loose, the courtier said quickly. He flinched back, as if struck, as A stood and slammed his fists through his own desk. Then why are you here, you moron? A declared. I don't know what idiot whispered that into the daimyo's ear, but I'll be amazed if they survive long enough to meet my fists with that stupidity. The courtier attempted to mask his fear with outrage. Now, see here, Konoha has the 9 tails. A declared boldly as he marched forward. Not in a jar, not in a host, but an actual biju now guards the land of fire. And you want to risk our own Jinchuriki, of being at such a disadvantage for years. The courtier fell backward in fright, attempting to crawl backwards without seeming pathetic. Well, that is, a point, perhaps that I should remind to my lord at my return. A towered over the official from Lightning's capital. Listen well, you worm. Tell the Lord of Lightning that without our Jinchuriki, we could never hope to stop the 9 tails before it ravished the lands, least of all if it is aided by the ninja of Konoha. The official swallowed nervously. You are dismissed, A said pointedly, prompting the man to run as fast as his legs could carry him. Mabui silently entered the still open door. That went well. People that know nothing of ninja and ceilings should keep their mouths shut on things like this, A said loudly under his breath. Mabui frowned. Do you think it'll come to war? It might have to. This changes the balance of power, A said with a distasteful frown. Many already considered Konoha the mightiest of the ninja villages, and they refused to utilize their Jinchuriki as weapons of war. Now they have a biju that appears loyal to them. Has B heard anything from his biju? Mabui asked idly. A shook his head. B says the 8th bastard refuses to say anything about it. But Yugito thinks the beasts are sad. Mabui wasn't sure how to process that, so she left it be. Our agents in the land of fire say the Kyuubi has been moved to a beach in the south. Konoha wasn't very secretive. That is one boon. Hiding a Jinchuriki is easy enough, but a creature that massive. A shook his head. I can scarcely imagine what that thing is doing, now that it has space to move and practice its power freely. Meanwhile, Naruto crawled out of the water, spitting a long and giant stream of water out of his mouth. Huh, I made a rainbow. Neat. Naruto said with a smile up at the event. He walked with 3 legs, one of his hands occupied. He brought his hand down, carefully allowing the sands to shift out of his grip before placing down his prize, the wreckage of a sunken ship, taken from the bottom of the bay. He idly looked over the rest of his collection, that consisted of anywhere from 4 to 7 ships. Some of them were still half missing and he wasn't sure which went together yet. Now if I only knew how they put ships in a bottle, then I could surprise the hell out of everyone back in Konoha, Naruto said, glancing to the empty sake bottle off to the side. This is what you're doing. I know that voice, Naruto said with a hum as he turned to see some familiar faces on the beach. Azumo, Katetsu, you finally got off gate duty. The two braced themselves as Naruto approached them, less because of fear and more from just how high they had to look up. Any reason to come to the beach, Katetsu said with a smirk. But seriously, this is what you're doing. I took a break from falling in water, Naruto answered, his fur still dripping wet, making his fluffy tails a rather unimpressive display. And so you now have salvaging as a hobby? Azumo jabbed, glancing at small fleet of wrecks. Or just making the ship version of a junkyard? Naruto snorted as he flared his chakra to dry himself, the tips of one of his wet tails snapping in annoyance towards Azumo's general direction. A curved blade of water shot from Naruto's tail, causing a sizable slice where the beach and forest met, easily big enough to be a cut from Naruto's claw. Quote. Did you know you could do that? Azumo asked in surprise. Hell no. Naruto answered, shock melting into excitement. Did I just cast a water jutsu? Does that count as a water jutsu? Sure counts for me, Kotetsu said as he ran over to the slice. Damn, this isn't shallow either. That is definitely A-rank damage. And I have 9 of them, Naruto said, looking back at the 9 tips of his tails. Quote. I'm beginning to see the upsides here. The Kyuubi could never do water attacks though, Azumo said in confusion. Then again, the Kyuubi never went to the beach. Wait a minute, Kotetsu said with wide eyes, looking up at Naruto. Can you do that with other stuff? Naruto remained silent and motionless for a second before he laid a tail on the beach, twisting it back and forth in the sand. Then, with a sudden jerk, he struck it out to the ocean with a wave of chakra through it, unleashing a wave of sand. Quote. Oh, Gaara is going to love that, Naruto said with a relishing smirk. Guys, you might want to get away from the beach, maybe on the giant pillars. Well, I think we just kick-started the training marathon, Azumo remarked with a head shake. We should probably listen to. Hey, Naruto, Kotetsu yelled after Naruto, who was walking down the shore. Where are you going? Away from my boat collection. Naruto answered without looking back. Azumo and Kotetsu shared a look at that. We really shouldn't, Azumo said warningly. But imagine if there's something good in them. Kotetsu said, looking at the ships. Yeah, but you want to be stuck inside one when Naruto cannonballs. You did hear Kakashi warn yous about that, right? Azumo reminded. Oh, he's not going to do that anytime soon. Not while he's training, Kotetsu waved off. Yes, he's just going to be hurling around more chakra than we can probably comprehend, Azumo said dryly. Exactly, Kotetsu said with a sage nod, ignoring his friend entirely. Besides, I'm sure he heard us talking, he hears everything. Don't remind me, Naruto yelled in the distance. See, it's fine, Kotetsu said assuredly as he headed off to one of the beached wrecks. Azumo paused in consideration. I almost miss the gate now. A few hours later, a thoroughly destroyed section of the beach left Naruto rubbing his chin in thought. Okay, water and sand are easy. Same with earth, though, that turns more into a rain of rocks. Wind is hard to catch with my chakra. Which, I get, it's ing wind. I can't exactly grab it. Fire. I'm going to put off for the moment. Don't want to burn down all the trees. Naruto murmured. Idly, he stabbed a tail into the ground, his chakra surging through it. Naruto leaned away as a miniature sand twister formed near his back. And I can do that, he mused as he removed his tail, shaking off the sand. Though, if I can do sand, can I do stuff like ice if it was cold enough? The topic of ice made Naruto's mind drift back to an old enemy and friend of his. His eyes looked eastward, towards the land of waves and the grave of Haku. From that self-proclaimed tool, he had learned the value of fighting to protect those he cared about. The sight of the setting sun on Konoha from his perch atop the Hokage monument flashed in his eyes, with Sakura sitting on his snout with a smile on her face. That much hadn't changed about him. Something on your mind? Azumo asked idly. Naruto glanced to him and raised a great brow. There's an octopus over your shoulder. It was in one of your ships, Azumo answered with a shrug. Never tried to fry one of these things so, you know, something new to try. Naruto said nothing to that, glancing back out over the horizon. We're, going to be setting up camp on one of the pillars, since it's getting late, Azuma offered. Enjoy the view then, Naruto answered idly. Quote. Seriously, is there something wrong? Making me a bit worried here, Azuma asked in concern. No, just lost in thought, Naruto mused. They ever say what they were doing about Sasuke? Azuma blinked, a small scowl on his face. He's not seeing daylight anytime soon. That's all we know. Naruto sighed and shook his head. Stupid bastard. Ruined things for both of us. My dream and his revenge. Looks like neither of us will get what we wanted. Azuma remained silent, knowing those words weren't really for him. The giant fox rolled his massive shoulders as he stood. Well, no use sulking about it, Naruto decided as he headed back to the waters. Azuma watched in fascination as Naruto's hands and feet made contact with the water, bobbing in the water as he attempted to walk on the water before ultimately falling through into the shallows. Well, shallows for a Biju. Then he brought his hand up and tried again. Definitely still him. Just keeps pushing along, Azuma said with a bit of relief, watching as the golden figure slowly began to vanish beneath the surface of the water. Naruto, trying to so much as hover underwater, continued his small trek on the seafloor as his fur swayed in the water. Something bumped against his nose, prompting him to stop in surprise. It was a shark, a rather large one, who was staring at Naruto with an animalistic confusion. Then it bit his nose. Above water, Azuma and Kotetsu looked up as a very large explosion erupted at sea, launching something into the air with a voice echoing from the deep. Off. Both of them, from their perch on the mountainous pillars, watched as something flew through the sky and fell into the waters. Is that a shark? Azuma asked, squinting at the object. Talk about biting off more than you can chew, Kotetsu remarked. More like natural selection, Azuma said with a headshake. Next day. Hey, gate guys. Wake you're up. Azuma and Kotetsu jumped from their bedrolls next to their campfire, as they rose to the edge and saw Naruto looking up at them. What the? Naruto. Kotetsu yelled down. Are we being attacked or are you a nine-tailed rooster now? Is something wrong? An intruder? Azuma asked with a frown. Nope. Naruto answered, crossing his arms. Pack your shit and get something in your stomach, we're going back to Konoha. The two shared a look at that. Why? Kotetsu asked in bewilderment. We just got here yesterday. Because I feel like it, Naruto answered bluntly. I've been here for the better half of a week. So either get ready or I'm not giving you a free ride home. Quote. Can he really just go back without warning anyone? Kotetsu asked in a whisper. Yes, I can, Naruto interrupted in annoyance. Looks like we don't have a choice, and our job is to keep an eye on him, Azuma remarked, turning back to their little campsite. Less than an hour later, Naruto was making his trek back to Konoha. Mostly retracing his path from the first time. Well, this is going to be like a giant road or something if you keep sticking to this path, Kotetsu remarked as he looked back, seeing Naruto's footprints from his coming and going to the beach. So, why the sudden desire to head back to the village? Azuma asked from between Naruto's shoulders. Like I told Kakashi-sensei and the pervert, I'm staying at the village at least once a week, Naruto said bluntly. You seemed pretty happy about getting your own space though, Kotetsu remarked. Well, yeah, but that's like being happy you can leave your house finally. You don't want to be cooped up all the time, but you want to come home still, Naruto explained. I guess that makes sense, Kotetsu decided, glancing back at Naruto's tails. So, what's it like? Naruto grunted questioningly. Having 9 tails. And I don't mean 9 tails of chakra, I just mean 9 actual tails, Kotetsu asked, watching them moves around. Mostly in unison, but one or two would sometimes twitch out in their own direction. Naruto started, hesitating. It's hard to explain. They're a bit like arms, but it's hard to remember just how flexible they are. Controlling them all at once is hard, unless it's something simple. Avoid this spot, lay down, stay behind me and don't sway all over the place. Using one or two for more specific things isn't too hard. They all feel weird as hell, like I have tiny legs sprouted just above my quote. Tiny legs? Azumo asked, trying not to laugh at the description. Tiny to me, Naruto reasoned. I'm telling you, those tails are 90% fluff. Definitely one of my weirder missions, Kotetsu decided with a head shake and nearly fell off as Naruto suddenly came to a stop. Wow, what now? Little old lady crossing. Azumo frowned as he noticed Naruto sniffing the air. What is it? I don't know, Naruto said, his voice free of all humor as a dark look crossed about his face. I know this scent from somewhere though, and I don't like it. Azumo looked to the north, the direction of the village. The village is close now. I know, Naruto answered pointedly, his ears raised. Nothing seems wrong here, Kotetsu pointed out. We should just head on, we can just report it to the Hokage. I know, Naruto repeated with narrowed eyes. Both Chunin resigned themselves as Naruto treaded off the path. No other settlements were nearby, so at least that wasn't a concern. Naruto's strides got longer and faster. Azumo and Kotetsu said nothing, merely holding on while watching for anything out of the ordinary. Then, without warning, Naruto reached his hand out towards the ground. His hands landed not with a loud slam but with a firm thud. You okay, Shika, Ino, Choji? Naruto asked suddenly. Oh thank Kami, it's just Naruto, Ino said in relief. I thought it was some other giant monster. Naruto normally took offense to unironically being called a monster. He did not, however, take issue to being summarized as a giant monster, in terms of what he was. Somehow, adding giant to it made it sound more descriptive and less insulting. Deciding now was the best time to investigate, Kotetsu and Azumo leapt down to the forest and found the second generation of the Ino Shika Cho trio lying on the ground from the impact of Naruto's blow. What happened? Who are? Azumo started, glancing back at Naruto's palm. To his horror, something was managing to budge the giant hand, just a little. Or, who were you fighting? Thanks, Naruto, for not crushing me. Choji said in relief, particularly close to Naruto's fist. Yeah, Choji, are these two idiots relatives of yours? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow as he tilted his palm to partially expose the enemies in question, their heads sticking out. Look, Raijin, a giant meal, all for us. One said, looking up at Naruto with drool on his face. I've never eaten a fox before, Fujin. The other declared. Really stupid relatives. Naruto clarified. It's the legendary stupid brothers, Azumo said with a sigh. Quote. Naruto blinked, twice. Oh, wow, you're not saying that as a joke, are you? No, and they're supposed to be in prison, Kotetsu remarked in exasperation. Huh, brother, do we know them? Fujin asked in confusion. I think they fed us snacks back at the clubhouse, Raijin answered. I am not even going to ask, Naruto said, getting a tick mark as they kept struggling. Stop that. I'm trying to not burst you like blood pimples. Do you know how hard it is to step on an ant without crushing it? Think they're more like beetles for you, Shikamaru remarked as he addressed the Chunin. There was a jailbreak. We were helping search for them and another. I know, Naruto said flatly, making Shikamaru frown. Can you two deal with these two? Quote. I mean, if we get some food, they'll probably go back on their own, Kotetsu suggested. You have food? The stupid brothers asked instantly. Oh, come on. Even I'm not that bad. Choji said in disbelief. Luckily, we packed some for the road, Azumo remarked as he pulled out some jerky. Okay. Let them up. Just be ready in case they try anything. Naruto obliged, watching in frustrated fascination as the two very large brothers stood up, not only unfazed by being held down by a biju, but now having seemed to forget that he even existed. That anything else existed besides the prospect of food, hence their intent stares at Azumo and Kotetsu. Here, you big lugs, Azumo said, as he and Kotetsu threw the pieces of food at them. The brothers caught them mouth first, instantly grinning in stupidly good-natured ways. That was all we needed to do. Ino hissed under her breath. Why didn't they send a chef to catch them? Or, just tell them there's more food back at the prison. Naruto suggested. There is. Raijin and Fujin declared in sync. Race you, brother Fujin. Raijin challenged as he bolted away. No fair, brother Raijin. Fujin called after, still grinning away. The just happened? Naruto asked, utterly stupefied. Azumo sighed. We should probably go after them, make sure they actually get to prison. They might forget why they ran back to begin with. Wait, there's still. Ino looked up at Naruto awkwardly. What part of, I know, did you not get? Naruto asked, looking around the area. Well, are you going to just hide like a baby, Mizuki? Silence reigned. Naruto sighed as he looked to the Chunin. You two, keep an eye on those idiots. Shikamaru, you guys go warn someone back in Konoha that they might actually try to break back to prison. You could just yell it and the village will probably hear, Kotetsu reminded. Right, Shikamaru said with a sigh. We'd probably just be in your way at this point. With that, all five of them departed, leaving Naruto seemingly alone. Seemingly. Come on, Mizuki. I can smell you. You honestly reek of hate and fear, Naruto said with a snort as he strolled around the forest, scanning it for any sight of the traitor. What's the matter, sensei? Fox got you tongue. Not a soul dared answer him. Naruto knew he was getting close, lowering his head as his nose sniffed just below the canopy. I can smell a bit of Orochimaru on you. I guess that's why you came back to the village. He have some secret stash of dirty toys you wanted to plunder? Naruto asked, as if he was having a casual conversation. Hope you cleaned whatever you got. Never know where he's had his stuff. Someone tried to flee with a body flicker and Naruto grinned. He leapt forth, shaking the ground with his hand swiping out to swipe away a section of trees. A flash of silver caught Naruto's eyes. Got you. His hand reached out, snapping shut on his prey. A bloody scream echoed in his ears as he pulled up, seeking Mizuki's head peek out of his fist. Well, Mizuki-sensei, I see prison has been good to you. Had to bulk up before someone made you their prison bitch or something? Naruto asked with a smirk. You damn monster, you broke my arm. Mizuki screamed. Like I said, it's hard to step on a bug without crushing it, Naruto repeated darkly. I knew I was right about you. Damn monster. You were the fox the whole time, biding your time. Mizuki screamed, his eyes mad with rage and terror. Naruto looked thoroughly unimpressed. Yeah, heard it all already. Let me go, you demon. Mizuki yelled. I was so close to finally. Naruto just stared at Mizuki, who fell into a silence of frustrated defeat. Naruto, Uruka-sensei, Naruto said in surprise as he turned to see the instructor heading towards him with a kunoichi in tow. Well, this feels familiar, Mizuki. You caused trouble, I beat you up and Uruka cleans up after us. Just like old times. Naruto, Iruka said uncomfortably. That's enough, please. Just hold him long enough for the Anbu to take him in. Naruto tilted his head at Iruka again before glancing to the woman again. She startled under his gaze, but it wasn't fear in her eyes. Or at least not the kind of fear he expected. She looked almost pleadingly at him as her eyes kept glancing to Mizuki. Looks like you have someone that cares about you, Naruto muttered, looking back to Mizuki, who only glared in return. Naruto sighed at what he saw. And you don't even care, do you? Don't act like you know anything about it, demon. You can drop the act already. You're not even hiding what you are anymore, so just get on with it already. We both know you have every reason to destroy the village. Mizuki barked out hatefully. Mizuki, that's enough. Iruka yelled with a glare of his own, wishing his old comrade was a bit closer to the ground and in taijutsu range. It's fine, sensei, Naruto waved off with his free hand. I've had worse. Honestly, it's sad, I've heard literal children say more original insults than you. Stop acting like you're human, Mizuki demanded with some weird, crazed bloodlust about him. Tell you what, I'll consider acting like a demon when you start acting like a decent human being, Naruto retorted cheekily. And seriously, chasing Orochimaru's coattails. Sasuke did it better. What are you even on about? Mizuki asked in confusion. Naruto blinked, looking to Iruka. They don't exactly give prisoners weekly reports on how the village is doing, Naruto, Iruka informed with a sigh. Right, Naruto said, his face shifting in thought. Fancy seeing you here, old hag. Right on cue, Tsunade appeared on Naruto's head. Fancy you catching our runaway, Tsunade remarked with a smirk, staring daggers into Mizuki's form. I ran into Shikamaru and his team. You picked a perfect time to visit, Naruto. You're telling me, Naruto said as he lowered Mizuki down to the ground and suddenly released him. What are you? Mizuki started, only to be surrounded by 4 Anbu, one holding a kunai to his throat. Oh. With that, he was bound and restrained as Tsunade came down to flick him on the head, leaving him groaning and almost crying on the ground in pain. We're going to have a nice long chat about what you were planning before sending you back behind bars, Mizuki, Tsunade said factually. Lady Hokage, the kunoichi said. May I have a moment with Mizuki? Tsunade frowned at her. And you are Tsubaki, my lady, she answered softly. Naruto couldn't see Tsunade's face from this angle, but he knew her eyes hardened at that. I see. And I'm just supposed to trust you weren't helping him. Hiding him, Lady Hokage, Iruka started, until Tsunade held up her hand. You may, Tsunade said to Tsubaki. You'd be stupid to try anything with all of us here. Tsubaki didn't glance to the Anbu or the Hokage at that, but to Naruto himself. He would be lying if he didn't feel a bit sheepish at that. He didn't listen to whatever Tsubaki and Mizuki said to one another. He focused on absolutely anything else, mostly other ninja in the distance. But whatever it was, as Mizuki was pulled to his feet by the masked Anbu, Naruto knew Mizuka hadn't said anything kind or comforting, judging by the tearful look on Tsubaki's face. Before they took him away, the silver-haired traitor turned to glare up at Naruto. You will always be a monster. Naruto the human would have bristled and gritted his teeth at that. Naruto the Biju brought his head low to the ground. Mizuki's hate slowly gave way to fear, trying to jerk away. The Anbu held him firm, and Tsunade made no move to stop Naruto. Neither did Iruka, or Tsubaki. At last, Naruto's enormous snout was in front of Mizuki. A long, harsh snort came from Naruto's nose, Mizuki nearly jumping out of his skin. Then, Naruto opened his jaw. Slow, and just enough to see through the vast fangs, to feel the heavy breath. Then why are you still alive? The cold, toneless question shook Mizuki as he stared into his personal image of the Shinigami, as if only now comprehending how painfully easy this monster could him. After all, it's very hard to step on an ant withouting it. Naruto snarled in disgust as he pulled back. Naruto? Tsunade asked with a quirk eyebrow. He pissed himself, Naruto informed with displeasure. I'm done with him. You, old hag, take him away, Tsunade called out, the Anbu nodding as they left. Iruka, escort Tsubaki back to the village. I have a few questions for her and you as well. Iruka nodded solemnly, forcing a smile to Naruto despite the mood. Thanks, Naruto. I'll stop by the mountain later if you're there. You know it, Naruto said with a half-hearted chuckle of his own. Lady Tsunade, Tsubaki said with a deep bow of respect. With some hesitation and uncertainty, she also bowed her head to Naruto. And, thank you, for sparring him, Lord Naruto. With that, they two departed, leaving the Godime Hokage and Nadime Kyuubi alone in the forests outside Konoha. Lord Naruto, Tsunade asked with a teasing tone. Well, the daimyo did give me that beach, so, that technically makes me, lord, of that place, right? Naruto pointed out with a joke smile. Tsunade thought about that for a moment before conceding. Can't argue with that logic. But, moving on, got tired of the beach? Tsunade asked curiously. Got tired of being away from home, Naruto answered with a shrug. Besides, you guys apparently fall to pieces while I'm gone. What's that supposed to mean? Tsunade asked flatly. I was gone for less than a week and you guys have a jail break. Naruto pointed out, somehow both amused and frustrated. Seriously, are the emergencies literally going to wait until I leave to happen? Yes, you idiot. You're a giant guard fox looming over Konoha. People are afraid to pickpocket with you around. Tsunade pointed out, it's a ninja village. They should be afraid to pickpocket on principle. Naruto countered, finding the idea hilarious. But seriously, a jailbreak? Did Sasuke break out? 'Cause if he did, I will honestly be a bit pissed off. No, he didn't, Tsunade said with an eye roll. Given how valuable he is, we kept him secure in Konoha. Quote. Naruto stared at her for a long moment of concern. Quote. I don't like that look, Tsunade said with a frown. Are you sure he didn't bust out in the middle of this? Naruto asked, something almost a whine to his voice. 'Cause knowing your luck. Oh, go slump on your perch and get your tails in a knot. I'll have them check his cell, Tsunade said with a huff as she headed back to the village. If she looked back, she'd see a smiling Nine Tails.